My greedy fiancé ruined my first life, and then I woke up 8 years earlier with one chance to take revenge. It was July 1st, 2009, in her parents' living room, during the money meeting that had trapped me the first time. They wanted $400,000 before they would let me marry Fiona Sutton. The reset came with one ugly rule: before the day ended, I had to verify a $100 million win and control a working company, or I died again. I looked Fiona in the eye and cancelled the wedding. Her brother swung at me, so I put him on the floor. My father had already emptied his future for this family once. I would not let him pay twice. That was the first taste. To understand why I cancelled the wedding, we have to go 8 years forward. Fiona had emptied the apartment on the final night of my first life. 8 years later, I still loved Fiona. We had become engaged, and her family had turned that promise into a bill. My father once won a modest lottery prize and handed over most of it for our wedding. He kept almost nothing. Fiona's family took that money. Then they took my salary, a house payment, an SUV, and a car for her younger brother Todd. Todd once sent me a dealership photo with one message: Friday. My salary covered their bills and every emergency they invented. Fiona's parents called until I borrowed more. I worked overtime until my hands split. Fiona complained about the towels. They called every demand family. The debt stayed in my name. That final night, Fiona stood over me with her hand out. "The salary came in today," Fiona snapped. "Todd needs the money for his car. My account showed zero. I don't have it," I told her. Fiona pointed at my wrist. "Sell your watch. It's already gone." Her eyes cut toward the desk. "Then sell the laptop. Your father took it last month." Fiona slapped me before I finished, then threw a glass of water across my shirt. "You're useless," Fiona said. "My family gave you everything, and you still can't provide." I looked around the apartment. Her mother had our dining set. Her father had my laptop. Todd had my car. Fiona had every paycheck I had earned for 8 years. "What exactly did your family give me?" I asked. Fiona's face tightened. "We're one family. Stop separating everything like a selfish little man." Family appeared whenever an invoice did. I stood. "Then why am I the only one paying?" Fiona shoved my chest. "Because you're the man. Figure it out. Have nothing left." She leaned closer. "Then become worth something." Her voice went cold. "I'm buying life insurance on you next week," Fiona said. "After that, you can die for all I care. At least you'd finally be useful." She had taken my money for years. Now she had put my death in the budget. I asked one last question. "If I died tonight, would you miss me?" Fiona folded her arms. "Before the policy starts? Don't be stupid." I laughed once. Then I ran. Fiona shouted behind me. I reached the open window, stepped onto the sill, and pushed forward. For 1 second, the wind erased the bills and the promises I had broken to my father. Then the ground came up. I opened my eyes in Fiona's parents' living room. July 1st, 2009. The same envelope waited beside Fiona, and my hands were young again with no factory scars. Fiona's mother tapped the envelope. "We agreed on 40,000. That was before we considered the house. The new contribution is 400,000. Fiona's father nodded as if she had quoted the weather. Her mother smiled. "Once the money arrives, you can finally call me Mom." 8 years of payments had never bought the warmth. Fiona touched my wrist. "Calvin, don't make this ugly. My parents only want security." Todd leaned back beside her, already grinning. He was Fiona's spoiled younger brother, and my old life had funded every bad decision he made. "Pay the 400,000, Todd said, "or stop wasting my sister's time." Fiona was young, polished, and certain I would fold. I remembered everything. "Fine," I said. Todd laughed. "See, he knows his place." I reached for the envelope, then tore it in half. "I'm paying $0, I told the room. "The wedding is cancelled." Fiona's smile vanished. Her mother slapped the table. "You begged to marry my daughter." "That was before I understood the package included 3 full-time parasites," I said. Fiona's father rose. "Watch your mouth in my house." I stood too. "Gladly, I'm leaving it." Todd lunged. "You think you can insult us and walk out?" He swung at my face. I stepped inside the punch, caught his arm, and drove my shoulder through his chest. Todd hit the carpet hard enough to lose the rest of his speech. The wedding had cost one brother and $0. Finally, a fair price. Fiona rushed toward Todd while her mother screamed my name. I pointed at him before he could rise. "You attacked me. Stay down, or the second lesson costs extra." Todd stayed down. Good. The human late fee had finally met a consequence. Fiona's father crouched beside Todd and threatened to make me pay for the injury. Her mother reached for the phone. "Call whoever you like," I told her. "Start by explaining why your son threw the first punch in front of witnesses." Her thumb stopped above the screen. Fiona looked up at me. "Calvin, stop. We're supposed to be family." I cut her off. "No marriage, no family." Anger reached Fiona before sadness. "What about everything between us?" "I remember all of it," I told her. Then I pointed at the ring. "Keep it, lose my number." Then I walked out while the Suttons argued over who had ruined the deal. The bill came immediately. I had less than a day to turn memory into $100 million and a working company. That afternoon, I crossed Rivergate to the same neighborhood lottery counter my father had used. In the first timeline, my father's ticket had won a smaller prize. He poured most of it into my wedding, then went right back to work. That was why I remembered this counter, this date, and the exact winning sequence. I bought the winning ticket before anyone else could. I folded it once and placed it behind my ID, the first thing in my wallet nobody else could claim. The clerk handed me the thin paper and barely looked up. To him, it was a $2 gamble. To me, it was the first piece of a $100 million escape. I stepped behind a magazine rack when my father entered the store. He looked exhausted, dust ringed his work collar, and tape held his wallet together. My father bought his usual ticket, clasped it between both hands, and whispered toward nobody. Just enough for Calvin's house, just enough so they'll let him marry. His entire prayer was about my future. Even his lucky break had become another payment to the people who would destroy me. I almost stepped out, then I pictured him changing his numbers because I startled him, so I stayed behind the rack and let him leave. Protecting the timeline felt awful, but losing the jackpot would kill both versions of our future. My father left with his shoulders bent. I held the winning ticket and made him a promise he could not hear. "You will never beg for my future again." A cold system voice answered inside my head. Lifeline novice mission activated. Blue words filled my vision. Lifeline was the interface tied to my reset, and its clock had started the instant I came back. 3 hours were already gone. The rule was simple. I had 21 hours left to verify a $100 million win and take controlling ownership of a working company. The ticket could satisfy the first half, and the second required employees, assets, and real operations. A shell company would not count. Fail, and Lifeline would drain my survival reserve to zero. Near zero meant pain and nausea. Zero meant my senses would shut down before I died again. I stared at the ticket. Apparently death had customer service now, and the hold music was my pulse. The lottery result would not post until midnight, so by early evening I was back at my apartment building. A scream came from the floor above, and I knew that voice. Rosalie Hartman had grown up with me. She was the lifelong friend who still brought soup when I was too broke to admit I was hungry. In my first life, her mother's medical debt had pulled them toward loan sharks. By the time I understood the danger, Rosalie's life had already ended in tragedy. I had carried that failure for 8 years too. This time, I was already running upstairs, and Rosalie's apartment door hung open. A blonde collector had her pinned against the wall by one wrist. His partner in a red shirt blocked the hallway with a knife. Rosalie saw me and shook her head. "Calvin, leave, they'll hurt you." The blonde collector glanced at my old shirt and laughed. "Boyfriend? Lifelong friend," I told him. "Now take your hand off her." He tightened his grip instead. "Her family owes $500,000, the blonde collector said. "Loan, interest, medical bills. 3 days or we take something worth selling." His eyes moved over Rosalie, and that was enough. I crossed the room and punched him under the jaw. He folded against the wall and Rosalie slid clear of his grip. I stepped between her and the knife. The red shirt collector came in low, expecting panic. I caught his wrist, drove it into the doorframe, and kicked his knee sideways. He tried to wrench free, so I ground his forearm against the wood until his fingers opened. The knife hit the floor between us, and I picked it up before he did. He froze. Honestly, I don't know what he expected after bringing 1 knife and 0 talent. The blonde collector staggered upright. "You just made this worse." "No," I told him. "You made the price clear." I set the knife on the table. Blade pointed away from everyone. "You get your $500,000 within 3 days, I said. "After that, both of you come back, kneel, and apologize to Rosalie." The red shirt collector laughed. "With what money?" Held up the lottery ticket and he squinted at it, then laughed harder. Good. He had chosen confidence before checking the result. The collector's back toward the door and the blonde one pointed at me. 3 days, miss once and we take her. I stepped closer. "Touch her again and the debt becomes your hospital bill." They left. Rosalie locked the door, then turned and stared at me. "Since when could you fight?" Rosalie asked. "I've had a difficult day," I said. Her gaze moved over my shoulders. "That explains the face, not those." "I had these shoulders yesterday," I told her. Rosalie smiled. "They finally clocked in." Laugh escaped me before I could stop it. There she was, safe and still roasting me. Then Rosalie's smile faded. "Calvin, you can't owe $500,000 because of me." "They are the debt," I told her. "You're the person I'm protecting." I moved the knife into a drawer, and Rosalie caught my sleeve. "What happened to you today?" The answer was 8 years, 1 window, and a system with murder in its terms. I gave her the only part she could use. I stopped letting bad people set the price. A spike of pain punched behind my eyes. A bitter taste flooded my mouth. My stomach twisted, and my fingers lost strength. I tried to step toward Rosalie's couch. The room tilted hard enough to throw me against the wall instead. Lifeline flashed another warning. Survival reserve critical, physical deterioration accelerating. Rosalie grabbed me before my head hit the floor. Calvin! My knees still buckled. The winning ticket remained in my pocket. Rosalie's 3-day deadline was now mine. And somewhere in Rivergate, I still had to buy a company before my body shut itself down. Rosalie got me downstairs to my apartment before my legs quit completely. Minutes after the collapse, she sat me on the couch and pressed a cold towel against my neck. Lifeline kept one warning across my vision. 21 hours remained. My survival reserve had not hit 0, so the pain eased after several ugly minutes. The system had given me the worst customer service timer in history. It had no pause button and apparently charged full price for dying. Rosalie crouched in front of me. You need a hospital. I need the lottery result, I told her. Rosalie frowned. That answer made the hospital sound more urgent. A knock hit the door before I could stand. Rosalie opened it and Fiona walked in without waiting for permission. Fiona saw my pale face, then she saw Rosalie's hand on my shoulder. Her concern lasted about half a second. So this is why? Fiona demanded. Rosalie straightened. Why what? Fiona ignored her and looked at me. Was the wedding contribution too much, or were you already seeing someone else? There it was. Fiona ignored my pale face and the bruise. Money came first, Rosalie came second, and my health landed somewhere after parking. Her family had sent her to recover their income. I stood, though the room still leaned a little. The engagement is over. Fiona crossed her arms. My mother sent me to fix this. You don't get to throw away years because she asked for security. Your mother raised 40,000 to 400,000, I said. Fiona scoffed. You could negotiate. I did, I told her. I negotiated myself out. Rosalie bit the inside of her cheek, and Fiona noticed and snapped at her. This doesn't involve you. Rosalie moved beside me instead of backing away. You came into his apartment. In my first life, people had watched Fiona speak for me. Rosalie had known this version of me for one day and still chose my side. Fiona's eyes narrowed. Calvin, tell her to leave. No, I said. One word. Beautiful. Fiona stared at me like I had started speaking another language. I continued before she could rebuild her authority. I told Fiona, your family will keep pricing your life until you have nothing left either. Get away from them while you still can. For 1 second, her anger cracked, then pride covered it. You'll regret this, Fiona said. When you come crawling back, the price will be higher. I opened the door. Send the invoice to Todd. Fiona left without another word. Rosalie waited until the hallway went quiet. Rosalie watched the hallway. She seems pleasant. She gets warmer when direct deposit clears, I said. Rosalie almost smiled, then pointed at the couch. Sit before you fall over and make me explain this. I sat for exactly 10 seconds. Then I gave her my spare key, locked the windows, and told her to stay inside until I returned. You promised those men $500,000, Rosalie said. I remember, I told her. Rosalie pointed at my empty counter. And you still have no money. I have a ticket, I said. Rosalie held my stare. That isn't reassuring. It will be tomorrow, I told her. That night in my apartment, one local headline solved the company problem. Harborcrest Development had missed 6 months of payroll. Its lenders were circling, and its owner had vanished from public view. I remembered what happened next. 2 years later, a transit interchange turned Harborcrest's forgotten East Side land into Rivergate's hottest commercial corridor. Right now, nobody wanted the company except me. Buying that wreck under a death clock was reckless, but dying on schedule was worse. Near midnight, every lottery number matched. The next morning, my assigned account manager verified the ticket and stood straighter. $100 million gross. $68 million is usable now. He gave me his direct number and one warning. Another huge transfer could trigger an automatic fraud hold. The review had already eaten most of the night. When the money cleared, Lifeline showed 43 minutes. I ran straight to Harborcrest headquarters, where unpaid workers had blocked the gate. Handmade signs covered the entrance. 6 months. Pay us. No more lies. A worker stepped in front of me. Office is closed. I'm looking for the owner, I told him. The worker jerked his chin toward the crowd. So are we. Another worker pointed toward a black sedan trapped behind the crowd. He's trying to run. Dale Huxley sat in the back seat of that car. He owned Harborcrest, its debt, its land, and every angry face outside. That made him exactly the man I needed. I pushed through the workers and one grabbed my sleeve. You at the bank? No, I said. The worker looked me over. A buyer? Maybe, I told him. The worker looked at my old shirt and barked a humorless laugh. Fair reaction. I looked like I had come to ask Harborcrest for bus fare. A woman near the gate shouted that the company owed her husband 6 months. Another worker said severance rumors were spreading and the deal had just become a public test. A foreman held up his phone and showed 6 missed payroll deposits. Another worker kept refreshing the same empty banking screen. Future land value meant nothing to them. They wanted the wages already earned. I needed the company to live, and they needed wages they had already earned. If I bought Harborcrest, payroll came first, and I pushed through the last row of signs. A security guard pretended not to notice me because the workers had stopped obeying him hours ago. I opened the sedan's rear door and climbed inside. Dale Huxley stared at me from the opposite seat. He was Harborcrest's fleeing owner, wearing a suit that cost more than some workers outside had made in months. Beside him sat Rudy Keene, Dale's bald enforcer and bodyguard. Rudy reached for me immediately. I shut the door behind me. I can keep your boss out of prison. Dale's face changed and Rudy's hand paused halfway to my collar. I continued. The workers want wages, your lenders want blood, you want that car to move. Dale leaned forward. Who are you? The person bringing money instead of another demand, I said. Rudy heard the warning and grabbed my shirt anyway. Bad choice. I drove 2 fingers into the soft point beneath his throat and shoved his wrist away. Rudy folded across the seat, coughing. Dale stopped looking at my clothes. Dale leaned closer. How much money? All of Harborcrest, I said. The land, the projects, the company, and the debt. Dale laughed once, and it sounded tired. You want the whole corpse? Dale asked. I want the deed, I said. 50 million, Dale said. The number came fast because he expected me to run. I nodded once, and Dale's tired laugh died immediately. The full package is 50 million, Dale clarified. 20 million closes control today. 30 million remains due under the transfer. I heard you, I said. Rudy managed to sit up. Boss, he's bluffing. Lifeline placed the timer across my vision. 25 minutes. I looked at Dale. You can test my money, or you can explain to the workers why your car left without paying them. Dale studied me. What happens to me after the sale? You stay and operate the company, I told him. That answer surprised him more than the money. Dale frowned. You trust me? I trust your fear of prison, I said. Dale's mouth twitched. Good. He could still recognize honesty. Dale pulled the transfer packet from a letter case and flipped to the only page that mattered. 50 million total, 20 million now, and 1 fingerprint for control. Rudy held out a tablet for the bank transfer. I entered the amount, and Lifeline dropped below 10 minutes. A high tone started in my ears. Dale kept talking, but his voice moved farther away. Hearing loss initiated, Lifeline warned. The world became muffled. I watched Dale's lips and pointed at the printed number, 20 million. He nodded, turned the contract, and Lifeline showed 5 minutes. My fingers went cold, and the edges of the car blurred. Vision loss initiated, Lifeline added. Rudy's face became a pale shape and Dale tapped the fingerprint box. I could barely see it, and the bank transfer screen flashed for approval. I pressed my thumb to the page, and nothing happened. 3 seconds passed, then 5. My hearing was gone. My vision shrank to a gray tunnel. Dale shook the paper and pointed again. I pressed harder until the fingerprint reader lit and the control transfer completed. My body dropped sideways against the seat, and for one ugly moment, Lifeline stayed silent. The money had moved and the company was mine, but Lifeline still let the darkness close. Then blue text cut through it. Lifeline announced, Novice mission complete, 13 survival points awarded, store access unlocked. Sound crashed back first, and I heard Rudy swear. My vision followed, sharp enough to catch Dale staring at me. I was alive, and that was enough for one breath. Then the workers hit the car windows again. Ownership had arrived with 6 months of unpaid wages attached. Perfect! My first company came with a riot already installed. I sat up and pointed at Dale. Announce full payroll by this evening. Dale blinked. All 6 months? All 6, I said. Dale shook his head. That drains operating cash. It buys operating people, I told him. He opened the car door and climbed onto the curb. The workers shouted before he could speak, and Dale raised both hands. Harborcrest has a new owner. Every overdue wage will be paid by 6 tonight. The crowd went quiet for one beat. Then someone yelled, Another promise! I stepped out of the car. If one paycheck misses, I told them, block this gate with my car. Several workers looked at the sedan, and Rudy looked personally offended. Good! The promise finally had collateral. That afternoon, the first payroll deposits landed while Dale opened Harborcrest's map. He pointed at the downtown project. We can save this one. I crossed it out and circled the abandoned East Corridor instead. Dale stared at the warehouses and bad roads. Why there? In 2 years, the city approves a transit interchange, I told him. Buy every available parcel before the rumor arrives. How do you know? I read better reports than you. Rude, yes. Dale nodded and asked how fast I wanted the purchases made, sparing me any reincarnation explanation. The fleeing owner had become an operator before lunch. Then he handed me an invitation to the Meridian Grand. Investment reception tonight. Harborcrest needs better allies. So did I, and I took the invitation. When I reached the Meridian Grand that evening, a luxury car stopped at the entrance ahead of me. Fiona stepped out in a fitted evening dress. A rich man offered her his arm less than a day after I canceled the wedding. Fiona had found a richer date before the canceled ring cooled. At the Meridian Grand Hotel entrance, Fiona stood beside a rich man before the canceled ring had cooled. His name was Travis Maddox, an investment company owner in a tailored suit. He kept a possessive hand on Fiona's waist and made sure everyone saw it. Fiona looked good. In my defense, the dress was winning the argument. Then Travis saw my old shirt, bumped my shoulder and asked Fiona, "You know him?" "My ex-fiancée," Fiona said. Travis looked me over. "So this is the guy who couldn't afford you. She's with someone who can meet her family standards now." I glanced at Fiona. "That was fast." "Some people understand commitment," Fiona said. Travis smiled. The Walking Bad investment thought he had won. He had bought the family invoice. Before I could enter, Lifeline flashed a new mission across my vision. I had to invest $15 million in a real operating company to earn 10 mission points. The store opened beneath it, and one-use emergency stabilization cost 12 survival points. I had 13, so I dismissed the option as Lifeline's most expensive bad joke. A hotel guard blocked the door. "Invitation." I held up Dale's card, and the guard checked my jacket. "This belongs to Harborcrest's owner." "Correct," I said. The guard frowned. "Then where is he?" "Inside," I said. Travis laughed. "He found it in the parking lot." Fiona stepped closer. "Calvin, leave before security makes this worse." The guard handed the card back. "You're not on the list." Travis patted my shoulder. "Start with a better shirt." Travis was the third person that day to insult my old shirt. Dale came through the ballroom doors before the guard could touch me. "What's going on?" Dale asked. The guard pointed at me. "This man claims the owner invited him." Dale stepped beside me. "Calvin Avery is Harborcrest's owner." The guard's arm dropped, and Travis's smile did the same. Fiona stared at Dale, then at me, and Dale continued, loud enough for the lobby. "He purchased controlling ownership this morning." The guard opened the door so quickly his shoes squeaked. Travis changed voices. "Calvin, relax, we were joking." I looked at him. "You should practice somewhere else." Dale turned to hotel security. "Remove anyone blocking my guest." Travis lifted both hands and backed away. Fiona pulled him aside after the apology, so security passed him. I let him keep that small mercy, and he would spend it badly. Inside the ballroom, investors clustered around polished booths and expensive ideas. Dale introduced me as Harborcrest's new owner. Several people who had ignored me stepped over to introduce themselves. Fiona watched from across the room and looked at my jacket again without smiling. Then I heard laughter near a small technology display. A thin man stood beside a plastic box with 2 antennas. He was Emmett Archer, founder of Clearwave Networks, and everyone around him thought wireless routers were a joke. One investor tapped the device. "People already have cables. Why would they pay for another box?" Emmett kept his voice steady. "Because homes will have several computers, offices will need flexible connections, wireless access will become normal." The investor laughed again. I remembered Clearwave from the old timeline. Its routers would enter millions of homes, and its network patents would later be worth more than Harborcrest. The room was laughing at a product I knew would become normal. I walked over and asked Emmett, "How much do you need?" Emmett blinked. "For the current production run?" "For the company to move," I said. "15 million would fund development, manufacturing, and distribution," Emmett answered. "Perfect. I'll invest 15 million, I told him. The nearby laughter stopped, and Emmett searched my face. "You're serious?" "Did not come here to flirt with a router," I said. A few people laughed for a different reason. Emmett offered his hand. "Then I'll make it worth your trust." Before I could accept, Travis returned. Of course he did. One warning had only convinced him to find a larger audience for mistake number 2. Travis pushed through the small crowd with Fiona beside him. 15 million? He repeated. From him? He pointed at my jacket. Harborcrest owes workers 6 months of wages. Dale was running away this morning. Now this kid claims he bought the company and wants to throw money at plastic toys. Dale stepped forward. The workers are being paid. Travis scoffed. That is what a bankrupt man says before the checks bounce. Investors looked from Travis to Dale. If my transfer failed, Travis's version would win in public. Look, Travis still had time to stop, but he chose a public bet instead. I let him keep talking until the whole room was listening. Then I faced Travis. Let's make it measurable. Travis smiled. Please. If I transfer 15 million to Clearwave, you kneel, apologize, and slap yourself 3 times, I said. The crowd tightened around us. Travis laughed. And when you fail, security can force me to my knees, I told him. Fiona grabbed Travis's sleeve. This is stupid. Travis pulled free. He brought it on himself. Ronan Beckett, the Beckett family's materials heir, cut through the crowd. He was one of the reception's highest status investors. Then accept the wager, Ronan said. People moved aside before he asked, and Travis's posture changed by half an inch. That half inch told me everything, and Ronan looked at him. You heard the terms. Travis tried to grin. It was a joke. Ronan stopped in front of him. Do I look confused? Travis swallowed. No. Then continue, Ronan said. Travis forced a smile. Fine, I accept. Ronan turned to me. Can you transfer it? I can, I said. Good, Ronan replied. I hate unfinished entertainment. That earned him a small amount of respect. I reached into my pocket slowly, and Travis watched like I was searching for loose change. I let the pause stretch, then I produced the plain bank card assigned to my jackpot account. Fiona stared at it. That card looks ordinary, Fiona said. Calvin, stop before this gets humiliating. Travis snatched it from my fingers. This thing probably has lunch money on it. I took it back. Run the transfer, I told Emmett. Emmett entered his company account on the terminal. I entered 15 million and the screen processed until one red line appeared. Insufficient available funds. The ballroom went silent and my stomach dropped. I had just under 50 million available after Harborcrest. The money existed, but the screen did not care. Travis laughed so hard he bent forward. I knew it! Fiona closed her eyes, but Ronan looked at me without changing expression. Emmett's hand remained on the terminal, and Travis pointed at the guards. Make him kneel! 2 guards moved in, and I raised one hand. The account is under a high-value fraud hold. Travis spread his arms. Listen to him. The invisible fortune has rules now. One guard grabbed my right arm. I turned with the grip, drove my elbow into his chest, and sent him into a chair. The second guard rushed from the left. I caught his wrist, stepped behind his knee, and put him on the carpet at Travis's feet. Fiona stared. Ronan's eyebrow lifted as Travis backed up, and the bank warning returned to me. Another huge transfer could trigger a fraud hold. My hands were working perfectly. I hit the direct number the account manager had given me. He answered on speaker before the second ring. Mr. Avery, the fraud alert named the Meridian Grand Terminal. Stay there, I'm in the lobby. The ballroom doors opened, and the same account manager entered carrying a black case. Your balance was temporarily restricted after the Harborcrest transfer, he announced. The hold is cleared. Travis stopped laughing, and the account manager placed a new elite card on the table. Your available balance is just under $50 million. 2 investors stepped away from Travis. A hotel manager moved behind me. Emmett straightened. Fiona stared from my plain card to the elite one. I pushed the transfer again, and $15 million cleared. Emmett's terminal chimed, and Emmett looked from the confirmation to me. I won't waste this. You'd better not, I told him. I just fought hotel security for those antennas. Ronan turned toward Travis. Neil? Travis's face darkened. Ronan, be reasonable. You accepted, Ronan said. Travis looked to Fiona, and she took one step away from him. His jaw clenched before he lowered himself onto both knees. I stood in front of him. Apologize. Travis stared at the carpet. I'm sorry. Use my name, I said. His jaw tightened. I'm sorry, Calvin. Now the slaps, I told him. The first slap barely touched his cheek, and Ronan folded his arms. That was a skincare routine. The crowd laughed, and Travis hit himself harder. The second slap cracked through the ballroom and turned his face red. The third was louder. I let the sound settle, and Travis had finally made an investment with immediate returns. I crouched slightly so he could hear me. You also claimed Dale stole payroll money and Harborcrest could not pay its workers. Travis looked up. I never said stole. You said the checks would bounce, I replied. Tell the room what proof you had. His eyes moved around the crowd. None of his allies rescued him. Travis forced the words out. I had no access to Harborcrest's accounts. I was repeating rumors. Whose rumors? I asked. I don't know, Travis muttered. That part was probably a lie. I made him repeat the part he had said in public. Then say you invented the accusation, I told him. Travis's mouth twisted. I invented the accusation. Dale's shoulders loosened while Emmett offered me his hand again. This time I shook it. Travis left the circle with one hand on his red cheek and the other already dialing. Fiona approached after he cleared the crowd. Her voice dropped. Were you always this rich? No, I said. Fiona glanced at the elite card. Then how? You stopped asking useful questions years ago, I told her. Her eyes moved to the elite card, and her voice softened too late. Lifeline interrupted. It recorded 10 mission points, then skimmed its 10% administrative cut from that reward. Mission points did not refill the survival reserve keeping me alive, which still showed 13. I stared at the numbers. Fiona's family finally had competition. Lifeline might be the greediest entity in the story. My phone rang, and Rudy's name filled the screen. I answered, and his voice came fast. Boss, get back to Harborcrest. The workers are rioting. The payroll order should have bought one calm night. It bought me a second crisis. That same night, Rudy's call pulled me back to the Harborcrest yard. Workers had surrounded the loading area. The overdue wages had started landing, but rumors said I planned to fire everyone after payment and deny severance. Fear had moved faster than the bank, and Dale met me near the gate. 2 men are stirring them up, Dale said. They claim they represent the workers. I saw the blonde collector from Rosalie's apartment near the center. The red shirt collector stood beside him. Of course, the same two idiots had found another paycheck for hurting people. The blonde collector shouted, "Take the money and leave now, or the new owner keeps everything." Worker shoved forward and another shoved back. Someone knocked a power drill from a tool cart. The red shirt collector grabbed it and a foreman tried to stop him. The spinning tool struck the foreman under the ribs. He dropped and the shouting broke into panic. A coworker fell beside the injured man, pressed both hands to his shirt and shouted, "Call an ambulance." Rudy checked his phone. 10 minutes. The injured worker's breathing turned shallow. The coworker looked up at me. "He has a sick daughter. He's the only one paying for her treatment." The emergency stabilization option flashed back across my vision, 12 of my 13 points to hold him until the ambulance. That left 1 point between me and another collapse. Refusing meant watching a father die on my company floor. I knelt and placed one hand against the worker's chest. "Use it," I told Lifeline. Pain burned through my arm as 12 points disappeared. The worker's breathing steadied and the blood stopped spreading. His coworker stared at him, then at me. "What did you do?" "Bought the ambulance time," I told him. The sirens arrived before the stasis failed. Medical staff loaded the worker and confirmed he could survive transport. I stood with 1 survival point left and walked toward the collectors. The blonde one started backing away. "You," I said. The blonde collector pointed at the red shirt collector. He grabbed the drill. "You brought him," I said. Workers closed behind them. Good. Now the room had witnesses, and Rudy seized the red shirt collector's arm. Dale blocked the blonde one's exit and I asked one question. "Who paid you to start this?" The blonde collector looked at the workers surrounding him and finally lost his nerve. "Travis Maddox," he admitted. The yard erupted and the blonde collector kept talking. Travis wanted the payroll panic louder. He said if the workers turned on you, Harborcrest would collapse before the reception story mattered. The red shirt collector nodded quickly. "We were just supposed to agitate them." I looked toward the ambulance leaving the gate. "You upgraded the assignment." Then I kicked the blonde collector in the stomach. He dropped to his knees and the workers cheered. One of them kicked the drill away and stepped beside me. Dale nodded once. Rudy called me boss without hesitation and I faced the crowd. "No layoffs tonight. Every worker gets a real employment contract. The injured man's bills are covered and so is his daughter's treatment." The coworker who had begged for help lowered his head. "One promise." One changed face. "Enough." I ordered Rudy to lock the collectors in the security office and keep every worker nearby as a witness. Dale handled the aftermath. The workers had finally chosen my side. The price was 1 survival point, a richer enemy, and a worker fighting for his life. Rosalie needed a safer home before my enemies learned where she slept. The next person who begged me to use that power was Fiona, and the man hurting her was Travis. That night at my apartment, I told Rosalie she needed a safer home. Travis had already hired men to attack my workers. My address was public enough for hired men. Rosalie sat across from me, holding the tea she had forced me to drink. "You just bought a company," Rosalie said. "Now you're shopping for a house?" "A better one," I told her. Her eyes narrowed. "For Fiona?" "You or you?" Rosalie forgot the tea halfway to her mouth. That sounded dangerously close to a proposal. "It's a security upgrade," I said. Rosalie recovered fast. "Good, your romance skills need one." "Fair. Look, I had 1 survival point left, 3 enemies with bruised egos, and apparently no game." Then Lifeline dragged me into a white space with 1 blue screen. "Stage 1 inheritance unlocked," the system announced. "Acceptance is mandatory. Refusal may destabilize the host world." I stared at it. "You finally offer an inheritance, and the cancellation fee is the planet?" I accepted because apparently the planet needed me to click the button. Cold pressure crossed my body and the screen stopped at 1%. Ordinary missions paused during recalibration while my survival reserve stayed at 1. Fortune sight unlocked anyway. It showed broad value or danger through color, but it could not explain motives or guarantee outcomes. The next morning, Rosalie and I walked into a Rivergate luxury property showroom. I was still wearing the same old jacket Travis had mocked. Rosalie wore jeans and a simple blouse. She looked at my sleeve, then at the glass building. $10 million homes? Rosalie said. $20 jacket? The jacket has seniority. Black car stopped at the entrance before we went inside. Travis stepped out holding a villa brochure and Fiona followed beside him. Rosalie watched my gold digger ex take his arm. "Are we shopping here because of her?" "No," I said. "We're shopping here because you need locks." Fiona saw us through the glass. Her gaze moved from Rosalie to my jacket, then stayed on Rosalie. She changed direction and brought Travis over. "Are you following us now?" Fiona asked. Rosalie answered before I could. "He brought me." Fiona looked at her. "To a villa showroom?" "That's usually where people shop for villas," Rosalie said. Travis glanced at the displays. "Calvin, don't waste the staff's time to impress her." I looked at the cheek he had slapped himself 3 times. "You already performed for her last night. I don't need the stage." Travis's jaw tightened. Fiona took his arm harder and pulled him toward another wing of the complex. Her eyes stayed on Rosalie until the glass doors closed. "Good. Inside, a junior property agent approached us with a tablet. Her name was Blair Henson. She handled walk-in clients, and one look at our clothes convinced her we were wasting her morning. "What price range are you considering?" Blair asked. "The best villa you have," I said. Blair glanced at Rosalie's sneakers. "Our villas begin above 8 million. The condos across the road may fit better." Rosalie smiled politely. "We asked about villas." Blair lowered her voice. "I'm trying to save you both some embarrassment." She had mistaken contempt for customer service. Before I could answer, Maxwell Porter called from behind us. "Calvin Avery?" He walked over, spinning a new townhouse key around one finger and wearing a smile I remembered from school. Maxwell was my former classmate, you know the type. He turned every reunion into an earnings report. He slapped my shoulder. "I heard you canceled the Sutton wedding. Couldn't afford the new price?" "I found a cheaper solution," I said. I left. Maxwell laughed, then noticed Rosalie. "And you upgraded already?" Maxwell asked. "Fiona to the girl next door. Very budget conscious." Rosalie's smile disappeared, but Maxwell kept going because silence had never once saved him from himself. He tapped the key and announced that his townhouse cost $2 million. Then came 3 businesses, 2 cars, and 1 watch nobody had asked about. Finally, Maxwell looked at me again. "Your father still working himself sick?" he asked. "You should stop playing rich and help him." That one landed badly, and I stepped closer. "Say something about my father again." Maxwell lifted both hands. "Relax, I'm giving advice," Rosalie cut in. "Advice usually comes from someone worth copying." Maxwell's jaw tightened, and Blair looked toward security. "Sir, I may need to ask you and your friend to leave." Maxwell pointed at the doors. "There you go, save everyone the trouble." The showroom manager started toward us. I had sent my assigned bank representative the showroom address from the parking lot. Apparently, he had perfect timing. Then he entered, carrying a gold envelope. He found me beside the villa display and held it out with both hands. "Mr. Avery, your elite account card is ready," the representative said. "Your purchase authority is fully cleared." The showroom manager stopped beside Blair, and Maxwell checked the name on the envelope twice. His mouth stayed open after the second check. Beautiful. The gold card looked ridiculous beside my worn sleeve. That only made it better, so I pointed at the largest model in the showroom. "How much?" the manager answered immediately. $10 million. "I'll take it." Blair blinked. "You haven't toured it." Rosalie looked at me. "Calvin, maybe we should see the kitchen before you buy the entire kitchen." "Fair," I said. "Does it have doors?" The manager nodded. "Sold," I said. The card cleared before Maxwell found his voice. He moved closer with a fresh smile. "Calvin, old friend, you should have told me you were doing well." "You told security to remove me." Maxwell's smile twitched. "That was a misunderstanding." I looked at the guard he had summoned. "Please help him understand the exit." Security took Maxwell by the arm. He protested all the way to the doors. I called after him. "You wanted someone removed. Enjoy the service." The clearance rack mogul had ordered an exit. He got one, and Blair tried to recover the sale. "Mr. Avery, I can prepare the commission file." "No commission," I told her. The manager's expression hardened. "Blair, turn in your tablet." Blair went pale. Before she could leave, Lifeline flashed fortune sight across my vision. A gray-black haze clung to Maxwell beyond the glass. The color carried danger, heavy and close, but I did not know the cause. "Maxwell," I called through the open door, "your luck looks rotten. Stop betting on anything you think is guaranteed." He cursed and kept walking. I looked at Rosalie. Gold light rested around her shoulders and hands, warm and steady. Fortune sight gave no explanation, and I closed my hand around the villa key. Rosalie was getting the safest home I could buy. Blair stood near the manager's desk fighting tears. "My father needs surgery," Blair said. "I can't lose this job." Rosalie touched my arm. "She was rude. Let the commission teach her." I looked at Rosalie. "You're asking me to spare her?" Rosalie said. "I'm asking you to leave her one way to fix it." I looked at Blair's pale face, then at Rosalie's hand on my arm. I turned to the manager. "Blair keeps the job. She loses this commission and gets one final warning." The manager agreed, and Blair stared at Rosalie. "Thank you." "Next time," Rosalie told her, "sell the house before judging the jacket." That was my girl. An older customer overheard the exchange and approached with the confidence of someone who had been matchmaking since birth. "Young man," she told me, "I have 2 granddaughters, both beautiful, both single. You know where this was going." I pointed at Rosalie. "My girlfriend is standing beside me." Rosalie turned slowly. "Your girlfriend?" "Very territorial," I told her. Rosalie smiled. "Correct. She also wants the west bedroom." The older customer laughed and walked away. Rosalie waited until we reached the lobby. Rosalie asked, "How long have I been your girlfriend?" "Since the matchmaking ambush," I told her. Rosalie tapped the key against my chest. "You're already behind on flowers." "In my defense, I bought you a villa," I said. Rosalie's cheeks turned pink. "That defense may survive court." My phone buzzed before I could enjoy the win. Fiona had sent one message, room 606. Travis put something in my drink. Please help. She had sent it before the drug took full control. I stared at the screen, and Rosalie read my face. Fiona? Yes, I said. Rosalie held out her hand. You're going. Should block the number, I told her. Rosalie took the villa key from my hand. You can hate her after she's safe. She was right at the worst possible time. I left Rosalie with the showroom manager and drove straight to the Meridian Grand. Minutes later, outside room 606, I started recording on my phone. Travis had already used hired men once. I wanted a witness that could not get scared. The door was locked, and I hit it with my shoulder until the frame split. Fiona lay half-conscious near the bed. Her dress was torn at one strap and her arms barely moved. Travis held her wrist while reaching for the rest of her clothes. Take your hands off her, I told him. Travis looked over his shoulder. She came here with me. She told you no. Travis released Fiona and came at me instead. I drove my knee into his stomach. He folded. I caught his jacket, turned him, and kicked him across the carpet. Travis tried to rise, and I put him back down with one punch. Then I wrapped Fiona in the hotel robe and carried her into the bathroom. Cold water helped her recover enough to speak. Hotel medical staff waited outside once she could answer them. Only then did I turn back to Travis. My phone was still recording, and the red icon finally reached his brain. Travis wiped his mouth. What do you want? $30 million, I told him. He stared at me. For walking into my room? For drugging Fiona, touching her after she said no, and making me break a very expensive door. Travis tried $5 million, then 10, while I kept recording. I looked toward the bathroom, and he reached 20. 30, I repeated. Due by noon tomorrow. Miss it, and this recording reaches your board, the hotel, and every camera in Rivergate. Travis typed the payment agreement into his phone and confirmed it aloud. The Walking Bad investment had become a $30 million invoice. Hotel security dragged Travis into the hall while he shouted about lawyers. My phone kept recording as Fiona came out wearing the hotel robe. Her face was pale, but her eyes were clear again. She looked at my phone, then at me. How did you become this rich? Fiona asked. I almost laughed. I had just pulled her away from a predator, and money still reached the finish line first. Does money matter more to you than what happened here? I asked. Fiona swallowed. I'm trying to understand you. You had 8 years to do that, I told her. Fiona stepped closer. Calvin, maybe we can fix things. No, I said. I left her with the hotel medical team and told the front desk to arrange her ride home. The engagement stayed dead. That afternoon, after hotel staff took over, I drove back to the showroom office. Rosalie was still waiting with the manager. The manager handed me the final residence file and 2 keys. Rosalie stared at the paperwork. I'm tired of living inside other people's emergencies. I put 1 key in her palm. Then stop. This place is yours to live in. Her fingers closed around it, and Rosalie looked down at the key. You really did this for me. I said I would, I told her. She leaned against my shoulder for 1 quiet second. Then I'll make the place worth coming home to. I squeezed her hand once. The key stayed in her palm, where no Sutton could reach it. For once, Rosalie had a protected door, and I controlled every lock around it. The next day, noon passed without Travis paying the $30 million. His only message read, "You made this personal." Then Fiona called. My family knows you rescued me, Fiona said. My mother thinks we should talk about getting back together. Of course she did. Fiona's mother had heard assault, rescue, and $30 million. Her brain selected $30 million, so I ended the call with Travis still owing me. Fiona's family wanted access, and Rosalie finally had a key. And across Rivergate, Todd was turning a cheap internet cafe argument into the next $500,000 Sutton emergency. I learned the exact start of Todd's disaster later from his own whining and the cafe cameras. That evening, at a Rivergate internet cafe, Todd lost a multiplayer match to 3 local thugs. The original bet was cash and a carton of cigarettes. Todd raised it twice after bragging that nobody in the room could beat him. The final score appeared on every monitor. Look, Todd had lost clean. He accused them of cheating anyway, grabbed the winner's cigarette pack, and demanded a rematch on credit. The winner laughed in his face. Todd threw the first punch because the human late fee treated consequences like optional add-ons. He hit nobody important. The thugs hit him back, dragged him into a storage room, tied him to a chair, and called Fiona from his phone. Their new price was $500,000 by noon. Miss the deadline, and they would collect from Todd physically. Travis still owed me $30 million from room 606. Todd had created a separate $500,000 clock. The next morning, I was at my apartment checking Lifeline's store. My survival reserve still showed 1 point. The inheritance recalibration had paused ordinary missions, but I could spend the mission points already earned on short physical boosts. Lifeline also offered posture correction, skin repair, and facial optimization. I stared at the menu. Apparently, the system had seen my enemies and decided my cheekbones were the emergency. Fiona's mother called before I closed the screen. "Calvin, we heard about the villa," she began. Fiona explained what happened at the hotel. "Family should support family after a crisis." I looked at the phone. "Which family?" Fiona's mother snapped. "You and Fiona were together for years. You raised the wedding contribution tenfold and sent her to recover me," I said. Her voice sharpened. "Don't be petty. Fiona needs stability." "She needs distance from you," I told her. I ended the call. A few minutes later, the showroom manager arrived with Rosalie's finalized residence contract. Rosalie took the folder, thanked her, then watched me block another Sutton number. "You have the face again," Rosalie said. "What face?" I asked. Rosalie pointed at me. "The one that says your ex has started another subscription service for emergencies." The knock came before I answered. Fiona entered alone, without makeup, gripping her phone with both hands. She looked at Rosalie first because jealousy survived every disaster, then faced me. "Todd has been kidnapped." Rosalie lowered the contract. Fiona explained the cafe fight and the $500,000 demand. The captors had given her until noon. "Pay them," Fiona said. "Please." "No," I said. Fiona's face tightened. "They'll hurt him." "They already did," I told her. "Paying teaches him to repeat the lesson with a larger bill." Fiona stepped closer. "I'll repay you." "With what?" I asked. She forced the next words out. "Whatever you want, even me." The room went still, and I felt disgust before anything else. "Your body is not currency," I told her. "Todd does not get to sell you because he lost a game." Fiona's eyes filled. "Then let him die?" Rosalie turned to me. "Calvin, save him." Rosalie held my stare. "You can refuse the money, you can refuse Fiona. Don't refuse a life just because the person is awful." Fiona snapped. "This is family business." Rosalie faced her. "You offered yourself as payment in his living room. You lost the right to call this normal." That shut Fiona up, and I grabbed my jacket. "One condition," I told Fiona. "After Todd is safe, every tie ends. No family claim, no payment claim, no more using me as the emergency wallet." Fiona nodded too quickly. "Fine." Rosalie looked at her. "Say it clearly." Fiona clenched her jaw. "After Todd is safe, my family leaves Calvin alone." The promise sounded temporary even while she made it. I still needed the conditions spoken before I walked into the next mess. I told Rosalie to stay home and went alone. Before noon, I reached the internet cafe and followed the noise to a locked back room. A guard stepped in front of the door. "Money first." I hit him once under the ribs. He folded against the wall, and I took the key from his hand. Inside, Todd sat tied to a chair with a swollen lip. 6 men surrounded him, and the thug holding a pool cue grinned. "You brought the 500,000? "I brought the person you called," I told him. The thug lifted the cue. "That isn't payment." "Correct," I said. The thug swung the cue. Lifeline offered a short strength boost in exchange for mission points. The rule was simple. The boost raised force for several minutes, then ended. I accepted. Heat rolled through my shoulders, and I caught the pool cue with one hand. The thug stopped smiling, and I pulled him forward and drove him into the table. 2 more rushed me together. I lifted the first by his jacket and threw him into the second. A 4th man tried a chair. I kicked it back into his chest. The first wave went down fast because they had prepared for a pair, not a fight. Todd stared at me. "Since when are you that strong? Since your family became a full-contact hobby." I tore the tape from his wrists. Todd stood, rubbed his arms, and looked around the room. Then the idiot found a fresh way to make the rescue about him. "I need you to understand how broken this boy was. You took too long," Todd complained. "They hit my face." I stared at him. Todd continued. "You should compensate me. Give me 100,000, and I won't tell Fiona you embarrassed me in front of these people." I slapped him, and Todd hit the wall and grabbed his cheek. "You came here to save me," he shouted. "I did," I said. "The rescue is complete. The customer is still defective." I pointed at the door. "Go home." Todd threatened to tell his parents. "Tell them you're alive," I said. "That's the only profitable part of your story." He reached the hallway, then the rear entrance opened. Travis walked in with a larger group carrying bats, pipes, and 1 brick. He looked better than he deserved after room 606. "I kept a car outside your building," Travis said. "You led us straight here." Then he spread his arms. "Ronan, the reporters and your workers aren't here, it's just you." He glanced at the crowd behind him. "You brought 20 men to create privacy?" Travis's mouth tightened and he pointed at me. "Break his legs, I want him awake for the rest." The first man threw the brick, and my strength boost was already fading, so I spent more mission points on a short agility boost. The brick passed beside my ear, and the room slowed around me. I stepped inside the next swing, drove an elbow into the attacker's chest, and took his pipe before it landed. Another man came from my left. I moved behind him, let 2 attackers collide, and swept both legs from under them. Travis backed toward the door after ordering a mob to kill me. His mob kept finding the floor, but one man grabbed for Todd as a hostage. I crossed the room before his hand closed and kicked him away from Todd. Todd looked impressed for almost 3 seconds, then he hid behind a vending machine. Classic leadership. I reached Travis last, and he swung once. I caught his wrist, turned him, and put him face first against the wall. 30 million from room 606, I said. 20 million for today's attack. Travis strained against my grip. You're insane. 50 million total. He refused. I tightened his wrist and glanced at the men groaning around us. Travis opened his banking app and the transfer alert hit my phone seconds later. $50 million received. Every man still conscious heard the notification. 2 of them stopped pretending they might stand again. Todd peeked around the vending machine and finally understood that Travis had walked in as the boss and left as the payer. The Walking Bad investment had financed another loss. I released him, and Travis turned with murder in his face and no men left standing. Come again, I told him. The rates keep rising. Todd came out from behind the vending machine. I'm telling Fiona you attacked all of us, he said. I pointed at the exit. Be grateful you're alive long enough to lie. He left, and Lifeline flashed a message before I followed. Lifeline announced, coerced or dishonest funds do not generate Lifeline progress. I checked the $50 million alert again. Lifeline had developed morals exactly when my reward was due. The cash stayed. My reserve remained at 1, the boost points stayed gone, and 50 million bought 0 safety. That evening, Fiona arrived while Rosalie and I were eating at my apartment. She entered carrying Todd's version of the rescue. Fiona slapped both hands on the table. You beat my brother after making him wait for you. Rosalie set down her fork. He left this apartment to save Todd. Fiona snapped at Rosalie. Stay out of this. Rosalie leaned back. You keep bringing it into his home. Fiona looked at the finalized villa contract beside Rosalie. So that's it? You bought her a house and started showing off? Todd told you I profited from the attack, I said. Fiona pointed at me. He said you took 50 million because of me. Took it because Travis brought a mob, I told her. Fiona shook her head. Todd said you humiliated him, hit him, and left him in danger. He was tied to a chair when I arrived, I said. He walked out. Fiona pointed at Rosalie. You never did this much for me unless my family begged. Fiona kept pointing at Rosalie and the villa contract. Todd had become an excuse. I stood. Your family begged every month. They called the invoice love. Fiona raised her hand. The first like slap flashed through my memory. This time, I caught her wrist before it moved 6 inches. Fiona froze. That worked once, I told her. Never again. I released her arm and opened the door. Your family drains anyone close and calls them selfish when they bleed. I'm done defending myself against Todd's lies. Fiona looked at Rosalie, then at me. You'll regret choosing her, Fiona said. Rosalie answered from the table. He already regretted choosing you. Fiona left. Rosalie waited until the door closed. You caught that fast? I learned her rhythm a long time ago, I told her. Her anger softened. She moved the villa contract away from Fiona's wet fingerprints and set my dinner back in front of me. Eat, Rosalie said. You can dismantle the next family crisis after soup. Warmth lasted exactly 1 meal. The next workday at Clearwave, Emmett dropped 1 burned component onto his desk. Ship with this part and the router fails under heat, he said. Delay and competitors catch us. Then we stop buying cheap failure. I pushed the component back. Ronan Beckett can get us heat-resistant parts. Call him before this thing burns the company too. I tapped the failed board. Once it holds, take the router to telecom distributors. They already sell the connection. Emmett reached for the phone. That afternoon, a man twisting a waitress's arm outside a restaurant interrupted the materials problem with a worse one. The waitress was Blair, the property agent Rosalie had saved from being fired. She worked the second job to fund her father's surgery. The man hissed. Mr. Maddox gave you an instruction. I grabbed his wrist and bent it away from Blair. He dropped to 1 knee. Tell Travis his messages need better delivery, I said. The man tore free and ran, and Blair held her arm and looked terrified. He's been pressuring me for days, Blair said. He knows where my father is being treated. She opened her phone and showed me a copied threat. The message read, help us with Calvin or your father loses the surgery money. Below it sat a meeting time for the next afternoon. I called Rudy. Watch Travis, I told him. Give me 1 camera at the meeting. Skip the investigation parade. Rudy answered. Understood, boss. Travis had lost every direct fight, and Blair's copied threat showed his next target, my name. Fiona was already close enough to hold the door open. At Harborcrest the next afternoon, Rudy played 1 rough clip from the meeting listed in Blair's copied threat. Travis's voice came through first. Do the room exactly as instructed, or your father loses the surgery money. Blair asked what would happen to me. Fiona answered, I'll get Calvin to the restaurant. You only need to be in the hotel room afterward. A truck swallowed the rest. Good. I knew there was a trap, but not the whole shape. Dale paid Blair's father's surgery directly, and his confirmation arrived 10 minutes later, surgery funded. The last visible problem was Fiona's wine. Lifeline sold me a temporary toxin filter without touching my 1-point survival reserve. I gave Rudy 1 command. Keep the original. If they move me, tell Rosalie only where. When I call, release the package, nothing else. That was enough. Travis could still believe the stage belonged to him. The next evening, Fiona invited me to the restaurant where we had our first date. Returning there with the woman who once priced my death was a new personal record in terrible reunions. Fiona wore the blue dress from our first anniversary. I recognized the bait and she stood when I reached the table. "Thank you for coming. I was curious which version of you would show up." Fiona looked down. "The one who wants to apologize?" A bottle of wine waited between us, and she poured mine first. Fiona talked about our early years, before her family's bills took over every conversation. She blamed her family for the pressure and Travis for manipulating her. Then she asked to start again. I let her finish because villains do their best work when they believe the audience is trapped. "Your mother raised 40,000 to 400,000, I said. Todd treated my salary like an allowance. You slapped me when I had nothing left." Fiona's fingers tightened around her glass. "You keep making everything about money. Your family did that years ago." She pushed my wine closer. "Then let tonight be different." Lifeline flashed a warning across my vision. Lifeline warned, sedative detected, toxin filter active, physical threat neutralized. The filter was working, and I lifted the glass. Fiona watched my mouth instead of my eyes. I drank, and Fiona exhaled a second too early. "Do you still love me?" Fiona asked. "I still remember you," I said. Her smile returned. A few minutes later, I let my hand shake. I slurred one word, reached for the table, and collapsed across the booth. The filter kept me awake, and I performed the collapse myself. Fiona leaned close enough for me to hear her whisper. "Travis was right, you always come when I call." 8 years earlier, that whisper would have crushed me. Now it confirmed Fiona had chosen the trap. 2 people lifted me from the booth, and I stayed loose and kept breathing slow. When I opened my eyes again, I was in a Meridian Grand hotel room. My clothes were still on. Blair lay across the far side of the bed in a staged pose. She wore a dress chosen for the photographs, and she never touched me. No sexual contact happened, and the room was a set built around a lie. A phone camera clicked from the doorway. Blair sat up fast and clutched the blanket around herself. "What did you do to me?" Blair cried. Her voice shook while her eyes kept snapping toward the doorway. I sat up slowly. Blair ran out carrying the phone with the staged pictures. I smiled once. The parking lot threat already explained her fear, so I followed her downstairs. The Meridian Grand lobby was already packed with reporters. Fiona and Travis stood beside the elevators. Blair remained near them with her head down. 2 police officers waited beyond the cameras, and Travis kept glancing toward them. Rosalie pushed through the crowd from the entrance, pale and furious. Rudy had followed my order and told her only where they had taken me. She saw the photographs on a reporter's screen. "Calvin?" Rosalie asked. I held her gaze. "The pictures are staged. I never touched Blair." Rosalie studied my face for one painful second. Then she stepped beside me. "All right, say the rest where every camera can hear it." Travis's smile tightened when Rosalie stayed beside me. Travis laughed loudly enough for every microphone. "Of course he says that," Travis announced. "He lured an employee into a room and attacked her." Fiona stepped forward with tears ready for the cameras. "I tried to reconcile with Calvin," Fiona said. "I never imagined he would do this to another woman. She had drugged me and brought reporters, then she borrowed moral outrage." The audacity needed its own bank account, and Travis pointed at the photographs. "By morning, Harbor Crest's workers will know what kind of man owns them. Clearwave loses every investor. His reputation is finished." He kept talking because one public accusation was apparently too modest. "You know the move." Travis ordered the officers to arrest me and the reporters to publish everything. Then he promised Blair justice while crowding her shoulder. Fiona lifted one staged photo and told the cameras, "This is who Calvin Avery really is." Travis added, "By sunrise, his companies belonged to his creditors." He had accused me, sentenced me, and started dividing my assets before checking whether his own microphone was live. The whole lobby had become his stage. Good. I called Rudy. "Release it." Every reporter's phone buzzed within seconds, and Rudy's parking lot clip played first. Travis threatened Blair's father and assigned the hotel room. Fiona agreed to bring me to the restaurant. Then the room 606 recording appeared. Travis was on screen, holding a drugged Fiona while I broke through the door and pulled him away from her. The reporters stopped pointing cameras at me, and they turned together. Travis had been caught in high definition by the cameras he ordered. Beautiful. Dale's public debt file followed. Maddox Holdings had overdue loans, hidden liabilities, and enough unpaid obligations to make every investor in the lobby start checking their phones. Travis lunged toward Blair, and I stepped between them and caught his wrist. "Touch her," I said, "and the lobby gets a live sequel." He stopped while Blair looked from Travis to me. I told her, "Your father's surgery is covered. Dale paid the hospital directly this afternoon. Travis has nothing left to hold." Blair's shoulders came up. She turned away from Travis and faced the reporters. "Mr. Maddox promised me $500,000, Blair said. "He threatened my father if I refused." "Calvin never touched me. We staged the room and the photographs." Blair held up the phone. After the pictures, Fiona took it and told me to preserve every image. Travis repeated the threat against my father. Fiona grabbed Blair's arm. You agreed, Blair pulled free. You told me to keep the pictures and stay quiet. As the cameras moved closer, Fiona's tears disappeared and Travis tried to run. Reporters blocked one side, Rudy blocked the other, and I released Travis's wrist. The officers who had come for me cuffed him instead. Reporters shouted about Room 606, the hidden debt, and Fiona's role in framing the man who rescued her. Fiona looked at me for help, and I let her feel that silence. The full file goes to prosecutors, I told the cameras. It includes coercion, assault, hired agitators, and the staged accusation. Travis's face emptied. He had tried to steal my reputation and donated his own instead. 2 days later, a Rivergate news screen showed Travis behind a prison door while Fiona told courthouse cameras she barely knew him. Nobody bought that performance, and across town, a forced sale sign covered Maddox Holdings. I bought the useful assets cheap, and a $100 million buyer alert arrived before Travis could process the loss. I sold. Keeping his company felt like storing spoiled food. Lifeline flashed one clean message. Legitimate business milestone complete. Administrator upgrade unlocked. Fiona had gambled my name for Travis's money and lost both. Then Lifeline chose that exact night to become weird. Look, I had survived rebirth, a death clock, and a hotel frame-up. The pink bunny still surprised me. I was alone in my apartment bedroom when it dropped onto my bed. It stared at me with bright red eyes. I stared back. Lifeline upgrade complete, the bunny announced in the same system voice that had threatened my life. The bunny climbed onto my chest and tapped my cheek. The bunny chirped. Please rate your administrator 5 stars. I caught it under the front legs. You charged fees, hid rules, and nearly killed me. The bunny replied. 4 stars remain acceptable. Pink light filled the room, and the bunny transformed into a woman sitting across my legs. She had dark hair and sharp eyes. Her fitted red dress made my brain pause at the least professional time possible. In my defense, the system update had arrived with unfair graphics. She leaned close. Better interface? More expensive looking, I said. My bedroom door opened. Rosalie stood there holding 2 mugs. She looked at the woman on my bed. Then she looked at the woman's hand on my shoulder. Rosalie managed one sentence. Your security upgrades are getting creative. Then she fainted, and the woman moved faster than I did. She caught Rosalie before her head hit the floor and touched 2 fingers to her temple. A soft light passed through Rosalie's skin, and her eyes opened. The woman smiled. I repaired her. You caused her, I said. She placed one hand against her chest. My name is Zara. I am Lifeline's embodied administrator. Zara looked around my bedroom. I'll be staying with you. Rosalie sat up slowly. Living where? Zara pointed at me. Near the host. Rosalie looked at the bed. That answer needs fewer options. I moved Zara off my legs. The couch has one. Zara frowned. 1-star behavior. The greediest app alive had acquired a body and immediately started reviewing me. My phone rang before I could explain anything. Fiona appeared on video, furious and exhausted. Voices argued behind her. Todd shouted from somewhere off-screen. You lost Travis and all his money, Fiona's father barked. Then find another man with money and fix it. Fiona turned the phone toward herself. My father says I cost the family Travis's money. Todd says I ruined his future. They don't care what Travis did. They only care that the payments stopped. For once, her anger was aimed at her own family. Then she aimed that anger at me. You helped Travis frame me, I told her. Fiona snapped. You destroyed everything. You built it. I released it. Fiona's expression hardened. I don't need you anymore. The screen darkened for 1 second and Zara stopped smiling. A thin black distortion curled around Fiona's image, then vanished into her shadow. The call ended. What was that? I asked. An outside contract, Zara said. Hostile. Terms unknown. That was all she would give me. Fiona had lost Travis and gained a power I could not name. Rosalie looked between us. Calvin, start explaining. So I told her the truth. I told Rosalie I had died, returned 8 years, and awakened Lifeline. I explained the death clock, the mission, and why 1 survival point still scared me more than $50 million excited me. Rosalie's face went white and Zara cut in. Unauthorized knowledge creates risk. Memory correction required. No, I said. Zara touched Rosalie's forehead before I reached her. 1 mission point disappeared from my balance, and Rosalie blinked. She still remembered Zara as my eccentric assistant who could become a bunny. She remembered the companies, the villa, and every choice she had witnessed. The reset, the lethal missions, and the hostile contract language were gone. I faced Zara. Do that again without permission, and your review drops below 0. Zara smiled. Negative ratings are not supported. Of course they were not. Travis had tried to steal my reputation and ended in a cell. The next man smiled, shook my hand, and tried to steal my luck. The next morning at my apartment, Zara refused to let me leave without her. Her distance tether worked while Lifeline's channel was stable. If I got too far away, it yanked her back to me. I tested it in the hallway, and the moment I reached the stairwell, pink light flashed. Zara appeared against my chest with both arms around my neck. The neighbor across the hall dropped his newspaper. Zara looked pleased. Range confirmed. I set her on her feet. Personal space failed. Zara answered. System priority. The neighbor slowly closed his door. Rivergate had survived one more explanation it did not deserve. The tether also made clothes urgent. Zara looked down at the fitted red dress she had manifested in. You dislike the interface? The interface is distracting, I told her. Ronan Beckett is expecting a business meeting. Zara leaned closer. So you noticed. In my defense, the system update had arrived with unfair graphics and no modesty settings. An hour later, Zara left a clothing store in a black dress and short coat. She turned once on the sidewalk. Better? Looked her over. More expensive. Zara smiled. 5-star answer. The greediest app alive had discovered shopping. My survival prospects were getting complicated. That afternoon, Zara and I reached a private car showroom. Ronan had invited me to inspect a luxury coupe and discuss Clearwave's burned components. Ronan was the Beckett family's materials heir who had forced Travis to honor our wager. He stood beside the coupe with a folder under one arm. Another man held the keys and kept interrupting him. The Keats lunch starts in 20 minutes, the man told Ronan. My father expects you there. Ronan gave him a flat look. Your father can survive lunch without supervising mine. The man stepped closer. The supply agreement comes first. I looked at Ronan. Does your driver always schedule your meals? Ronan's mouth twitched as the man with the keys went still, and Ronan introduced him. Calvin, this is Dorian Keats. His family owns Keats Cellars. He is obsessed with other people's schedules. Dorian handed the keys to a salesman like they had offended him. Calvin Avery, Dorian said. The kid who bought Harborcrest. You've had a lucky week. He offered his hand, and I took it. His grip tightened and stayed there. Cold moved through my palm, and my vision dimmed for one beat. Fortune sight opened on its own, and a thin gold current pulled from my wrist toward Dorian's fingers. Dorian smiled. Ronan noticed the grip. Dorian, let go. Dorian kept holding me. I'm congratulating him. Some men need help understanding pressure. The gold current thickened, and a wave of nausea rolled through my stomach. His attack had landed. His smile said he expected me to blame the room, the lights, or my one remaining survival point. Zara crossed the space between us and wrapped both hands around my arm. She pressed close enough to make Ronan raise an eyebrow. Calvin, Zara purred, you promised me a car and a movie. Then she whispered against my shoulder. Break contact. He's taking your luck. I twisted my hand free. The gold current snapped, and Dorian's smile tightened. I rubbed my palm. Interesting handshake. Do all Keats Cellars deals come with hidden ingredients? Dorian's eyes sharpened. Careful. I remembered the public scandal from my first timeline. State investigators had eventually found Keats Cellars relabeling cheap bulk wine as reserve stock. The family lost distributors, licenses, and most of its pride. I looked at Dorian. Ask your father why unmarked tankers arrive behind Keats Cellars after midnight. Then ask what happens when the state lab tests the reserve bottles. Dorian released the breath he had been holding. Ronan turned toward him. Is there something I should know? Dorian's voice dropped. He is bluffing. Then call your father on speaker, I said. Dorian froze with his phone in his pocket. The salesman stopped polishing the coupe, and Ronan closed the component folder. Dorian had wanted a private pressure test and brought witnesses instead. Beautiful. He had tried to drain me in public. Now he stepped back before the same witnesses. You should have kept that rumor to yourself, I answered. You should have kept your hands to yourself. Dorian looked at Zara, then at Ronan. This isn't finished. Dorian left without the keys, the lunch, or Ronan. Ronan watched him cross the showroom. You collect enemies quickly, shrugged. I meet efficient people. Ronan opened the folder and showed me a photo of Clearwave's burned component. Send the failed unit to my engineers. If the design survives our test batch, I'll consider supplying the material. Clearwave still had to pass the test. Ronan had finally assigned engineers instead of offering polite sympathy. Zara tugged my sleeve. The movie remains unpaid, I told her. You used it as tactical cover. Zara replied, tactical cover deserves snacks. Ronan looked between us. I understand less every time you speak. Healthy instinct, I told him. Outside the showroom, I asked Zara what Dorian had done. She gave me 3 facts. Zara called the parasite a seed, an entity from outside my timeline. Each seed bonded to one host and granted one signature ability. Dorian's abilities stole luck through touch, while Lifeline shielded my core luck. That explained the gold current and the brief weakness. It also made Fiona's hostile contract look uglier. Before Zara could explain more, my father called. Calvin, come home tonight, my father said. Your uncle brought family business. Family business. In my experience, those words usually arrived carrying an invoice. That evening, I parked the coupe Ronan had let me test outside my parents' house. Zara turned into her pink bunny form before we entered. My father opened the door and stared past me at the car. "That belongs to my boss," I told him. The lie came easily. Explaining the jackpot would invite questions I could not answer safely yet. Inside, my uncle Curtis Avery sat beside my mother. His daughter was already staring at Bunny Zara. Curtis had ignored us for years and suddenly looked delighted to see me. He stood and gripped both my shoulders. "Calvin, you've grown into a successful young man." His daughter peered through the window at the coupe. "Your boss lets you drive that?" I told her. "Sometimes." Curtis laughed too loudly. "Family should help family rise. That's why I came." There it was, and he opened a glossy folder with no company name on the cover. Curtis lowered his voice. "A private project is taking early partners. 100,000 gets the basic slot, 300,000 gets the preferred slot, 50% return in 1 month." My father's hand moved toward his checkbook. In my first life, my parents had trusted relatives because they assumed family would feel shame before stealing. I placed one finger on the blank folder. "What's the project number?" Curtis blinked. "Private allocation." I tapped the empty cover. "What company holds the money?" Curtis pulled the folder closer. "The documents come after commitment," I asked. "Who signs the guarantee?" Curtis's smile thinned. "Calvin, successful people move before nervous people understand. Look, I had heard better pitches from men holding knives." I faced my father. "Do not write the check." Curtis snapped the folder shut. "Your father understands opportunity. He understands trust," I said. "You came to sell it." Curtis stood. "Watch your tone." I remembered the family scandal from the old timeline. Curtis's son had crossed the wrong employer, and the demand had reached our relatives before the truth did, so I used the one name he did not expect. "How much time did they give Darren?" Curtis froze. My mother looked between us. "Darren?" Kept my eyes on Curtis. "Your son got involved with his boss's girlfriend. Now somebody wants $300,000 to keep the problem quiet." Curtis's face lost color, and the glossy folder slid from his hand. My father slowly closed the checkbook, and Curtis pointed at me. "Who told you?" "You did," I said. "Your face has terrible security." While Curtis demanded my source, his daughter reached for Bunny Zara and grabbed both ears. Zara bit her finger, and the daughter yelped and dropped her. "That animal is vicious," Curtis's daughter cried. "We should cook it." I picked Zara up before she upgraded the bite. "Touch my rabbit again," I told her, "and dinner loses a guest." Curtis swept up the empty folder and pulled his daughter toward the door. He cursed me all the way outside, and Zara stared after him from my arms. The bunny administrator had ended the visit with 1 tooth and no paperwork. Efficient. After the door closed, my father looked at the checkbook in his hands. "I almost gave him the money," he said. My mother sat beside him. "We thought family would not lie about something this serious." I sat across from them. "Nobody gives 50% for free. When someone hides the project and shows only the return, your savings are the project." My father nodded. He had once prayed for money to save my future. Curtis had nearly turned that trust into another bill. This time, the money stayed in my parents' account. My phone buzzed before I left, and Fiona had sent a video. Apparently, new money only counted if I watched her spend it. Todd leaned against a new car, grinning at the camera. The human late fee had acquired wheels. Fiona held up a transfer confirmation for $300,000. "My family is fine without you," Fiona said in the video. "A young investor with 2 downtown apartments knows my value. I'll do what I have to do for my family." Her voice sounded flat. The money looked real. Todd revved the engine until Fiona's mother shouted approval from behind the camera. Fiona watched the transfer screen with a flat, obedient stare. I replayed the last 3 seconds. The video showed money, a new car, and Fiona promising obedience to somebody outside the frame. The patron's name and terms stayed hidden. The black distortion Zara had seen was already paying. The next business day at Harborcrest, Dale gave me 3 updates in under a minute. East Corridor construction had started, and the buyer's $100 million payment for Travis's old company had cleared. And a private market beneath Rivergate was auctioning rare objects that sometimes carried abnormal energy. Zara sat on my desk in human form. "We should go," I asked. "Because of the objects?" Zara shook her head. "Because Dorian's seed will not be the last one." So that night, Zara and I went beneath Rivergate's commercial district. An old guide spotted us checking the wrong steel door and offered the route. Rivergate had one street for every disaster. Understreet Exchange had hidden itself below all of them. The guide collected a $2,000 entry fee and gave one warning. "Down there, everyone is selling value," he said. "Most of them are selling your mistake." He opened a steel door and led us into a crowded underground market. Jewels and sealed boxes filled the floor. Smiling liars filled the gaps. Zara stopped beside me, and her fingers closed around my wrist. "Calvin," Zara whispered, "there are seed signatures everywhere." Ahead, a crowd roared around a cutting table. 2 uncut stones waited beneath the lamp, only one of them glowed red. The right-hand stone glowed red beneath the understreet cutting lamp. The young man being forced to choose was Andrew Chandler. His family had once carried real authority on the private auction floor. Now, a betting organizer was cashing in on their decline. Andrew stood between 2 uncut stones while the crowd pressed closer. His coat was expensive, but one cuff had been repaired by hand. The Chandler name still opened doors, but the family account behind it was almost empty. The organizer held up Andrew's signed betting slip. "Your family bought this turn. Pick wrong, and the penalty comes due tonight." Andrew's jaw tightened. He had entered to restore his family's face, and the organizer had turned that hope into public entertainment. The organizer tapped the left stone. "Choose this one, and the game ends clean." Andrew's hand hovered. Zara tightened her grip on my wrist. "The table is rigged." Fortune's sight gave me one useful fact. The left stone carried nothing. Red aura burned inside the right stone. The organizer announced the side rule before anyone could move. A $300,000 backing bet bought the chosen stone. If the choice lost, the backer owed $3 million. A spectator laughed. "Nobody's backing Chandler. His family can't even protect its own card." Andrew looked around the circle, but nobody stepped forward. I did. "Right stone," I told him. Andrew turned. "Who are you?" I answered. "The man putting $300,000 on your choice." The organizer looked at my clothes, then at Zara. "You understand the penalty?" I said. $3 million if it loses. Cut the stones." The spectator laughed again. "He just bought Chandler's funeral." I looked at him. "Stay close. I enjoy repeat customers." Andrew studied my face, then placed his palm on the right stone. Andrew said, "That one." The organizer's smile stayed too calm, and he cut the left stone first. Gray powder spilled across the tray. No gem, no value. The crowd shifted toward the right stone, and the organizer offered Andrew one last exit. "Pay the $300,000 and walk away before the second cut." Andrew looked at me, and I nodded toward the saw. "Finish it." The blade touched the right stone, and its first slice showed dull rock. The organizer smiled wider, then the cutter turned the stone and made a deeper pass. Red flashed through the opening, and the cutter stopped breathing for a second. A ruby the size of a small egg sat inside the rock. The appraiser pushed through the crowd, checked the color under the lamp, and named it. Blood Pigeon Ruby, high grade, approximately $5 million. Blood Pigeon was a terrible name for a $5 million rock. $5 million shut the crowd up, and even the organizer's hand froze above the tray. The spectator who had mocked me leaned closer. "Sir, I knew the right stone looked special." "You knew after the saw," I told him. "Strong work." The spectator stepped back as the organizer's smile disappeared and his hand reached for the ruby. "The house has to verify the stone." I placed my hand over the tray. The appraiser verified it. "Pay the wager." The crowd that had mocked Andrew started repeating the $5 million figure. One man moved beside Andrew instead of the organizer. Another asked for a Chandler contact card, and the organizer paid. Andrew's family name stopped being the punchline for one clean minute. Andrew faced me. "You saved more than the bet," I told him, "then use the minute well." Andrew pulled the Chandler family's black card and pressed it to the private elevator. Only 3 black cards opened that level: the Markets, and Unknown Factions, and the Chandler families. The host's arm dropped, and he held the door for the man he had nearly dismissed. While the elevator rose, Andrew gave me the only rule that mattered. "Every spoken bid is binding. Pay within 3 days, or Understreet records the debt and bans you." The appraiser sealed the ruby at $5 million before I took the seat beside Andrew. Dorian arrived with 2 guards and the same bad smile. "Chandler found a new sponsor." Andrew lifted the black card. "I found a guest." The first lot was a so-called lucky vase wrapped in black fortune smoke. I kept my paddle down while another bidder hugged his new problem. Then my ruby reached the stage, and the auctioneer opened at $5 million. Dorian looked around to make sure the room was watching, then raised his paddle. $20 million. I raised mine. $50 million. Andrew leaned toward me. "The stone is worth 5, I told him. "I heard the appraiser." Dorian answered. $100 million. Several bidders lowered their paddles. One whispered that the Keats heir always got what he wanted in this room. Dorian heard him and smiled, and I raised again. $200 million. The room stopped treating the lot like jewelry. Dorian looked at me across the aisle. "You can't afford this game," I answered. "Then stop paying for my attention." His jaw tightened. $300 million, Dorian called. I lifted my paddle. $500 million. Andrew caught my sleeve. "Calvin, if you win your own lot, the settlement fee still applies," I said. "Then I should avoid winning." Andrew stared at me, and you know where this was going. Dorian had lost face to me in the showroom. Now every bidder was watching. His ego did the rest. Dorian called. $700 million, I answered. $900 million. The room had speedrun past gemstone money and entered national budget nonsense. Dorian stood. $1 billion. I waited. He watched my paddle instead of the auctioneer. I raised it slowly. 1 billion? 100 million? Dorian laughed. 1 billion, 200 million. His voice carried across the room, and I set my paddle on the table. Dorian kept smiling for 1 second too long. The auctioneer called once, and Dorian looked at me. The auctioneer called twice. Dorian's hand lifted as if he could pull the number back. The gavel fell. Sold for $1.2 billion. Andrew covered his mouth with one hand and I leaned back. Congratulations, you bought my ruby. Dorian's face changed and every bidder who had watched my paddle turned toward his payment card. Dorian marched to the terminal and entered his account. The screen rejected the settlement and he tried a second card. Rejected. Dorian shoved the terminal. Run it again. The market attendant did, and the result stayed red. Dorian called his bank and demanded an override. He switched from threats to family names, then from family names to promises. The terminal rejected him a third time while the room listened. The VIP room watched Dorian's family name fail against a $1.2 billion bill. The attendant spoke plainly. You have 3 days to settle $1.2 billion. Failure triggers the debt record and permanent market ban. The attendant stepped back. Every bidder kept staring at Dorian. His guards lowered their eyes, and nobody wanted to stand beside a $1.2 billion mistake. Andrew whispered, he never fails here. I kept my eyes on Dorian. Explain. Andrew lowered his voice. For years, rival bidders made impossible mistakes around him. Cards failed, sellers panicked. Dorian bought rare lots for almost nothing. The handshake rule finally connected to the auction. The pattern fit. Dorian had probably touched rivals before their bids, then let stolen luck wreck them at the terminal. Lifeline's protection had disrupted the trick, and his own money could not cover the bid his power created. Dorian turned from the terminal and pointed at me. Outside, said, you already bought the stone. The conversation was free. He left with both guards and the audience watched him go. Nobody followed. An hour earlier, the crowd had mocked Andrew's declining family. Now the entire VIP room had watched Dorian purchase $5 million of ruby for $1.2 billion. He was cooked, and the receipt had 3 days on it. After the payment ultimatum, Andrew led Zara and me toward the exit. Dorian blocked the alley beyond Understreet's steel door. His guards spread behind him. Dorian started. You have no idea what the Keats family can. I punched him before the threat found a second sentence. His head snapped sideways, and one guard rushed me from the left with a metal baton. I stepped outside his swing, drove my shoulder into his chest, and sent him into the wall. The second guard grabbed Zara's arm, and Zara twisted free and kicked his knee. Dorian lunged while I was turned, and he caught my wrist with both hands. Cold struck harder than it had in the showroom. Gold light pulled toward his palms, and his smile returned. This time, I knew the route. I locked my fingers around his wrist and held him there. Calvin, release him, Zara warned. The gold current stopped, then it reversed. A dark thread tore out of Dorian's palm and ran into mine. The alley lights flickered. Dorian's nearest guard stepped on his own dropped baton and crashed into the wall. The second guard reached for me, missed, and tore his sleeve on the steel door. Dorian's face drained of color. The strength left his arms first, and his knees hit the pavement next. Fortune sight showed the bright aura around him shrinking by the second. I felt something foreign enter Lifeline's channel, but no explanation followed. Zara staggered. The red dress flashed pink, and she collapsed into bunny form beside my shoes. Dorian ripped his hand free and crawled backward. His guards had stopped fighting, and Dorian looked at me with real fear. What are you? I answered. The man you should have stopped touching. He forced himself upright against the wall. I will kill you, Dorian said. I pointed toward the market. Settle the ruby first. He fled with his guards. The luck thief had lost money, status, and whatever had lived inside his hand. Naturally, murder became his backup plan. Andrew looked from the alley to the silent pink bunny. What happened here? Andrew asked. I told him, something I can't explain yet. Andrew glanced toward the market door. Then nobody inside saw more than a fight. Good. Andrew protected the secret without charging me, then handed me a card. The Chandler family needs someone who can read treasures. Work with us. Name your price. I already own a company and fund another, I said. I don't need a third job. My card went into his hand instead. I added, call when you have a real opportunity. Keep tonight private. Andrew closed his hand around it. Done. I picked up Zara, and her red eyes stayed dark. Lifeline didn't answer when I called, and the store wouldn't open. Fortune sight flickered and died. Even the distance tether stayed silent because Zara's channel had shut down completely. For 3 days, the bunny administrator didn't speak. Lifeline ate Dorian's power and sent me the bill anyway. I carried Zara home with one question getting heavier at every block. What had I absorbed, and what would happen before she woke up? 3 days after the auction, I was back at my apartment with Rosalie and silent bunny Zara. Zara still hadn't spoken. Lifeline store showed a blank screen, Fortune sight returned in weak flashes, and the distance tether stayed dead. So I drove Rosalie to the villa with the pink rabbit still under my arm. Rosalie already had the key. I had given her paperwork, promises, and one claimed west bedroom. She had never walked through the finished house. That afternoon, I opened the private gate and parked beside the front steps. Rosalie stared at the stone entrance and the balcony above the garden. "Nothing special," I said. Rosalie looked at me. "Right, very modest. I assume the indoor staircase is for poor weather," I said. "Practical design." She held up her key. "Good. The west bedroom remains mine," I told her. "You claimed it before seeing the place," Rosalie answered. "I had faith in the purchase. Less faith in your decorating." The key worked. Her smile did too. Inside, Rosalie walked through the living room, touched the kitchen counter, and stopped at the back windows. "I used to imagine one locked door," she said, "a place where collectors couldn't walk in." I set Zara's bunny form on the couch. I told her, "Now you have a gate, cameras, and enough doors to lose me in." Rosalie turned. "This is really mine to live in?" Told her. "I bought it for your safety. Use it as your home." She looked down at the key. Rosalie walked upstairs, opened the west bedroom, and placed the key on the dresser. Then she opened the closet and claimed 2 shelves before I entered the room. "You move fast," I said. Rosalie answered, "Collectors taught me to pack fast. You taught me to unpack." I stopped joking when her eyes narrowed. "You still haven't explained how a lottery ticket became this." A car rolled slowly along the private lane before I answered. The driver saw me, hit the brakes, and reversed to the gate. Maxwell Porter stepped out with Fiona. Maxwell was the former classmate security had removed from the villa showroom. He had mocked my father, then discovered my bank card had more status than his entire personality. Fiona wore an expensive coat and carried herself like the hotel scandal had happened to somebody else. Maxwell lifted a listing sheet. "The gate agent let me show Fiona the villa next door. Didn't expect the neighborhood's newest charity case to be you." Then he looked from my house to Rosalie. "So the rumors were true. You dumped Fiona, bought Travis's company, and moved a younger woman into a mansion." Rosalie folded her arms. "He gave me the key before you showed up with gossip." Maxwell ignored her. "How did you buy Travis's company?" I answered the question Rosalie had asked first. "I won the $100 million Rivergate jackpot," I said. "I used the money to buy Harborcrest. I bought Travis's company after he ruined it, then sold the useful assets." Rosalie stared at me, and Fiona's hand tightened around her purse. Maxwell's insult disappeared and returned wearing a business smile. He adjusted his jacket, lowered his voice, and stepped closer to the gate like money had suddenly made us classmates again. Maxwell opened both hands. "You should have told me. We went to school together. I could have brought opportunities." "You brought security," I reminded him. "They removed you." The clearance rack mogul had switched from moral outrage to networking before the car engine cooled. Fiona stepped closer. "You hid the lottery from me," told Fiona. "The engagement ended before the result posted." Fiona looked at Rosalie. "You still chose her?" Rosalie moved beside me. "He chose a house without an invoice. That may be the difference." Fiona's mouth tightened because Rosalie had said it in front of Maxwell. Fortune sight flickered across my vision. Gray-black haze clung to Maxwell's shoulders. It looked heavier than the danger aura I had seen at the showroom. Fiona carried a different distortion. Thin black lines crossed her aura like a signature written by somebody else. Zara was silent, and I had no safe explanation for either warning. Fortune sight stopped at danger, and motive, date, and fixed fate remain hidden. Maxwell offered his card. I left his hand hanging. Fiona pulled him back toward the car, but she kept watching Rosalie's key. Maxwell let her drag him 2 steps, then turned and asked whether Harborcrest needed outside partners. "It needs people who finish a conversation before changing personalities," I told him. He stopped asking. They drove away with the lottery truth and none of the access they wanted. Rosalie waited until the car disappeared and she turned to me. $100 million? I lifted one shoulder. Gross. The usable balance was lower. Rosalie stared. "Calvin," I answered. "Yes?" She pointed at the mansion. "You called this nothing special." I told her. I was trying to stay humble. Rosalie tapped the key against my chest. "Try honesty next." Rosalie looked towards Silent Bunny Zara on the couch. "You have spent 3 days staring at that rabbit and every shadow in the room. We need one normal afternoon." Asked, "Define normal." Rosalie answered, "The amusement park, food, games, and 0 hostile billionaires." That sounded reckless by my new standards, so I agreed. Zara's Silent Bunny form stayed secure on the villa couch. At the amusement park that afternoon, Rosalie wore a yellow summer dress and tied her hair back. In my defense, Rosalie got my attention before the panda did. She caught me looking. "Eyes up, Calvin, the panda is over there," I told her. I was checking for danger. Rosalie glanced down at her dress. "Danger wore yellow?" I nodded. "Rivergate has range." Rosalie smiled and pulled me toward the game stalls. A ring toss vendor displayed a giant panda plush above 10 glass bottles. The rule was simple. 10 rings. Land all 10, win the panda, miss once, leave with dignity, and nothing else. Rosalie looked at the plush for half a second too long. You want it, I said. Rosalie kept her face straight. I'm observing it, I asked. Professionally? She nodded. With standards. I paid for 10 rings, and the vendor pointed at the distance line. Nobody clears all 10. The first ring landed, then the second. By the 5th, people stopped walking past. By the 9th, the vendor had both hands on the panda. The 10th ring settled around the last bottle. Rosalie raised both arms. The vendor lowered the panda like he was surrendering a family member. Take it, he said. Please don't play again. I handed Rosalie the plush and she hugged it against her chest. Best irresponsible purchase so far, I told her. The villa is offended. Rosalie squeezed the panda. The villa didn't have ears. The panda had better romantic timing than I did, which was a new personal record. We made it halfway toward the food stalls before Rosalie stopped. A park worker in a bear costume was being dragged behind a service gate by 2 men. The bear head turned and Rosalie went pale. That's Celia Morton, Rosalie said. She was my music program senior. She disappeared after graduation. One man shoved Celia toward a waiting van. Rosalie pulled out her phone. I'm calling police. A bystander grabbed my sleeve. Those men have taken girls before. They leave before officers arrive. I moved before the bystander finished. The first abductor expected me at the van door, so I cut between him and Celia. He swung a metal baton at my head. I read his shoulder, stepped inside the arc, and drove my fist into his ribs. He folded against the van. The second man grabbed the back of Celia's costume and tried to pull her away. I caught his elbow, turned it behind him, and pushed him face first onto the pavement. A third man jumped from the driver's seat. He charged low. I sidestepped, caught his jacket, and sent him across the open van door. The first abductor tried to rise with the baton. I kicked it under the van and put him down again. The bystander who had warned me pulled the van keys from the ignition. Another park worker shut the service gate. By the time sirens reached the park, the abductors had no van and nowhere to run. Celia sagged inside the bear suit, and I pulled off the mascot head. Her face was pale and her eyes barely focused. Rosalie reached us while giving the dispatcher our location. Rosalie knelt beside her. Celia, it's Rosalie, you're safe. Celia tried to speak and failed. I carried her away from the van before the sirens reached the park. At the hospital that evening, Celia woke beside Rosalie and named Vaughn Kersey, owner of Kersey Entertainment. He recruits through auditions and drugs women who try to leave. Celia pulled a compact drive from the bear costume's lining. Names, payments, room records. I copied them before his men found me. The officer opened one folder and his posture changed. The drive could open the case, but Vaughn was still outside. Celia looked at me. Why did you get involved? I told her. Rosalie knew you and his men were taking you. That was enough, Celia asked. What do you want? Nothing from the rescue. When you recover, take a safe job with one of my companies. Rosalie squeezed her hand. He's terrible at relaxing. He's good at showing up. Celia closed her fingers around the drive. I want Vaughn stopped. Then keep that safe and take the job, I told her. Celia nodded. Rosalie's normal afternoon had lasted until somebody needed help. The panda still sat in the hospital chair beside her. I thought losing Zara for 3 days was the bill. Then Lifeline opened a sealed cave and made me fight the life Fiona had already killed. That night at the villa, Rosalie carried the panda upstairs and left me beside Silent Bunny Zara. Lifeline opened the sealed cave before I could sit down. The couch vanished beneath me. Black stone replaced the floor, and a cracked statue stood where the windows had been. Zara's bunny body landed beside my boot, and pink light flashed through her dark eyes. Her voice scraped back through the dead channel. Those inscriptions belong to the first maker, Zara warned. He built this inheritance before an enemy from outside our world shattered it. The foreign seed signature inside Lifeline opened the next lock. 3 facts. Enough to make the cave dangerous without turning it into homework. A blue timer appeared above the statue. 60 minutes. Blue text appeared beneath it. Defeat the mental trial within 60 minutes and receive the Origin Mind method. Lifeline offered no survival guarantee after failure. Ancient gods apparently also hid the fatal terms beneath the acceptance button. Look, I had 1 survival point and a silent rabbit. Declining the trial was decorative, so I stepped toward the statue and let the timer start. The cave dropped away. I stood in the Sutton living room with a pen trapped between my fingers. The $400,000 wedding demand waited on the table. A woman stepped from the hallway wearing Fiona's face and voice. The cave had built her from my memory. The clone pushed the envelope toward me. Sign it, Fiona's copied voice ordered. Your father can cover whatever you can't. I dropped the pen, it reappeared in my hand, and the clone smiled. You always pay! My father's exhausted reflection appeared behind the window. His taped wallet was open, and the pen dragged my hand toward the signature line. I fought it until my wrist shook. Then the trial threw me 8 years forward, into the last night of my first life. My salary vanished from a banking screen. Todd's car keys hit the table. Fiona's mother carried away another envelope, and the clone slapped me. Cold water soaked my shirt. "You're useless," Fiona's copied voice said. "Wait until the insurance starts, then die." The open window appeared behind me, and my body ran toward it exactly as before. I hit the ground, and the living room rebuilt around me. Cycle 2. The timer showed 54 minutes. This time, I tore the wedding demand before the clone touched it. Todd's copied shape rushed me from the side. I drove him through the coffee table. The clone raised Fiona's hand for the old slap. I caught the wrist and threw her across the room. She broke against the wall, but the room reset anyway. Cycle 3. The clone returned without a bruise and tilted Fiona's copied head. "Better. Now spend your whole life hating me." I punched her before the sentence finished, and the cycle reset. By cycle 12, I could destroy the room in seconds. By cycle 27, the cave had learned that violence only made me easier to steer. On cycle 28, I crushed the clone through the Sutton's dining table and sat in Fiona's father's chair. She rebuilt across from me, almost pleased. "Good. Buy companies, humiliate me. Wake up every morning and ask whether I'm watching." The walls filled with screens, the villa, Travis kneeling, the hotel cameras, Fiona reacting to every win. I smashed one screen, and 10 replaced it. Soon, the room held nothing except her face and my fists. The open window returned, and another invoice waited behind me. The cave offered 2 cages. Pay her and stay the old wallet, or fight her until revenge owned my second life. On cycle 41, I ran through the front door and found my father praying over his lottery ticket. The clone reached for his taped wallet while a metal box swallowed my old paychecks. Each bill bought another demand: the wedding, the house, the SUV, Todd's car, my salary, my life insurance policy. I bent her wrist back, ripped open the box, and threw the money toward my father. The bills turned blank before they reached him. "You can't repay a life you already wasted," the clone said. I drove my fist through the box, but the cycle reset anyway. On cycle 63, Rosalie was pinned against her apartment wall while the collectors held the knife. "Save her," the clone ordered. "Then admit every rescue still begins with me." I dropped the collectors and pulled Rosalie free. Her copied hand caught my sleeve before the room vanished. On cycle 78, the injured Harborcrest worker stopped breathing again. The 12-point stasis appeared, and the clone held my last point like a coin. I spent it, and the worker breathed, the clone smiled, and the cycle reset. That smile gave away the trap. The cave wanted Fiona at the center. Obedience fed it, and rage fed it too. On cycle 86, 2 doors appeared. One opened onto the old apartment where Fiona waited with her hand out. The other opened onto a room covered in photographs of her public losses. "Submission or revenge," the clone said. "Pick the version of me you want to worship." I drove my shoulder through the wall between them. For 1 second, I saw Rosalie's panda beside my father's taped wallet. Then black hands sealed the opening and rebuilt Fiona behind my Harborcrest desk. She turned the villa key into another invoice and placed Clearwave's router beside the life insurance form. Every reward became an argument about her, and every door returned me to the window. The real hour kept shrinking, and my body remembered every fall. By cycle 98, my hands would not stop shaking. The timer showed 58 seconds. I had lived 98 full failures inside an hour that barely moved. My knuckles carried every fight, and my chest remembered every fall. The clone had learned my anger, my guilt, and every shortcut I used to escape both. It rebuilt the trap faster each time. The clone waited in the Sutton living room one final time. The timer above her showed less than a minute. She held the $400,000 envelope against her chest. "Choose," Fiona's copied voice said. "Pay me and live the old life. Kill me, and spend the new one proving I lost." Behind her, the room opened into 4 memories. My father prayed over a lottery ticket, and Rosalie placed her villa key on the dresser. The injured worker took another breath, and Emmett held the router everyone else had mocked. My father kept his money, Rosalie had a home, and the worker was breathing. Emmett had a company to build, but the clone still had 1 envelope. Cycle 99. Fiona's copied hand rose for the slap, and I caught her wrist. The clone smiled. "Without me, what are you?" "Busy," I told her. I ripped the $400,000 invoice from her chest. "You got 1 life," I said. "That account is closed." I tore the paper in half, and the clone split with it. Her copied face broke into black dust, and the Sutton living room collapsed with it. The window vanished last. I woke on the cave floor as the timer reached 0. The cracked statue moved, and 1 stone arm dropped toward my head. My body reacted before fear could catch up. 1 heel turned, so I rolled my shoulder and drove the falling weight into the floor beside me. I had never learned that movement. A second piece of stone skipped across the floor behind me. My foot caught its edge without looking and stopped it beside the statue. The pills had made me stronger and faster for a price. This was different. My body understood distance, balance, and force before I formed the thought. More movements followed, and my muscles knew them before I did. Lifeline flashed the reward. Origin mind method acquired. Host level 24. My survival reserve rose from 1 point to just above 2,000. For once, Lifeline paid before taking its fee. I assumed the invoice was delayed. Zara's bunny body snapped upright. Her red eyes burned brighter than I had ever seen. "Calvin, the fragment!" Zara began. A black gold piece broke from the statue and landed in my palm. One incomplete movement had been carved across its surface. Zara's voice cut off, and her bunny body dissolved into pink light. The light vanished before the distance tether could pull her back. The store icon turned gray, her channel disappeared, and Zara was gone. The store was locked, and Clearwave still needed Ronan's materials. The fragment gave me one move, while Zara gave me none. At sunrise inside the villa, Zara's bunny body still had not returned. Her voice, tether, and store channel were gone too. The black gold fragment remained on my kitchen table. The carving showed half a footwork pattern. When I traced it, Origin Mind Method pulled my stance into the missing finish. The clue stopped there. The one time I had 2,000 points to spend, Lifeline had left me on read. Clearwave still had a real-world problem. Its prototype components overheated, and Ronan Beckett had only opened a test path. I needed his family's material support before Emmett burned another production run, so that morning, I carried the fragment to Ronan's family home. Ronan met me in a private training room instead of an office. He was the materials heir who had forced Travis to honor our wager. He had also watched Dorian squeeze my hand like a thief with manners. Ronan looked past me. "Where's your red-dressed assistant?" "Missing," I said. His expression sharpened. "And you still came alone?" I told him. "I brought something expensive." I placed the fragment on the low table between us. Ronan's hand stopped before touching it, and the careless amusement left his face. He bent closer, followed the carved movement with one finger, then pulled his hand back. "This is incomplete," Ronan said. "So is your materials offer," I told him. His mouth twitched. "You brought a divine-looking relic to negotiate router parts?" I tapped the fragment. "I'm a businessman. Everything becomes inventory eventually." Ronan looked at me for another second, then removed his jacket. He kicked one chair off the mat and waited. Then Ronan stepped onto the training mat. "Show me the movement," I pointed at the table. "I brought the fragment." Ronan flexed his fingers. "I want proof you understand it. Your family always punches suppliers?" I asked. Ronan raised both hands. "Only the confident ones." "Fair." I stepped onto the mat and Ronan attacked first. He crossed the distance with a straight palm aimed at my chest. The old version of me would have blocked late and eaten the force. Origin Mind Method read his weight before his hand arrived. My left foot turned half a step, his palm missed my ribs, and my shoulder touched his arm at the exact point that broke his balance. Ronan stumbled past me, caught himself before the wall, then laughed once. "Again," Ronan ordered. He came faster. This time, the palm was bait. His leg swept low while his elbow cut toward my jaw. I lifted over the sweep, caught his forearm, and used his turn to send him across the mat. Ronan rolled, planted one hand, and rose without losing speed. Good. The materials heir had actual talent under the expensive shirts. Ronan rushed a third time and changed direction twice before committing. I waited until his heel touched down. Then I stepped inside, locked his wrist, and stopped my free hand 1 inch from his throat. His other fist stopped against my ribs at the same moment. We held the position while Ronan checked my hand, then his own. "A draw," he said. I kept my hand near his throat. Mine reached a better address. Ronan pressed his fist once against my ribs. "These disagree." Released him. "Ask them after they learn finance." Ronan lowered his fists, stepped beside me, and picked up the fragment with both hands. Instead of reclaiming the head chair, he stayed beside me on the mat. Ronan turned the fragment toward the light and traced the missing half again. "This movement is worth more than the component contract," he said. "I'm giving you the fragment," I replied. "Clearwave gets the materials support." Ronan studied the incomplete carving. "You trust me with this?" "Trust you to understand what happens if you waste it," he smiled. "There he is." Ronan called his operations chief into the room. "Release the heat-resistant batch to Clearwave. Priority testing, then full supply if the boards hold." He signed in his training gloves, and the shipping tag changed from review to priority. "You get the materials," Ronan told me. "I keep the fragment. Try not to challenge it to a fistfight." Ronan glanced at the cracked mat. "It might win faster than you did." He walked me to the door himself. The staff who had watched me arrive as a petitioner now moved aside for both of us. That afternoon at Clearwave, Emmett read Ronan's signature and threw the burned board into the trash. The engineers swapped in one Beckett component and powered the router. 30 seconds passed. The casing stayed cool, the wireless signal held, and the fire blanket went back into storage. One engineer hugged the materials case, which is how technical people say, "I love you." Emmett slid the blank launch folder toward me. "My partners want development. We need you leading brand, deals, distribution, and expansion." "I'll lead commercial operations," I said. "You keep engineering." He handed me the marker. "Then tell us what comes after the router." I placed a flip phone beside a separate camera and drew one widescreen on the glass. Calls, photos, messages, and the web, I said. One device, one pocket. A senior engineer pointed at the drawing. That screen drains the battery and the camera makes it thicker. Then the first model is thicker. Customers forgive weight when one device replaces 3. Emmett looked from the working router to the phone sketch. Network team stays on launch, smaller team starts the phone. Start now, I told him. The 2 engineers who had doubted my first investment uncapped their markers without arguing. One claimed the battery space while the other mapped shared router parts. Emmett asked where the idea came from. I hate carrying extra things, I told him. And I read excellent reports. By evening, the first Clearwave crates were tagged for Harborcrest's unused 3rd floor. 2 days later, prototype benches, router antennas, and the large phone drawing filled that space. Emmett's engineers now worked inside a building my father could once have spent his whole life trying to enter. He had prayed for one safe house. I had put an engineering team under one roof. By the reset's 1-month mark, Clearwave had materials, a Harborcrest floor, and a phone plan nobody else in Rivergate could see coming. Lifeline's store stayed locked, and Zara stayed gone. My new level kept draining the survival reserve that kept me alive. 1 month after my rebirth, I stood inside Harborcrest headquarters while Clearwave engineers carried phone sketches across the 3rd floor. Zara was still gone. Lifeline's store remained gray, and my higher level kept draining a survival total I could no longer see. I opened the panel again. Nothing. Healing, boosts, and fortune sight stayed behind the same gray lock. Then pink light struck the glass wall beside my desk. Zara appeared in full-size form with one hand braced against the window. Her red dress flickered at the edges, and her face carried none of the usual teasing. The Lifeline channel opened with her, and blue numbers returned across my vision. My reserve had fallen, but it was still there. Basic system access came back, but the store remained locked. I caught Zara's wrist before the light could take her again. She felt solid under my hand, though her pulse and outline both flickered. I held on and stepped closer. "Where did you go?" Zara straightened slowly. "I had to confirm something." I held on. "The tether failed. Your body disappeared. Lifeline locked me out for a month." "I know," Zara answered. I asked, "Confirm what?" Her eyes moved to mine, then to the empty inside pocket where I had carried the black gold fragment. Her lips parted before Zara answered. Shouting rose from the plaza below. A Harborcrest worker hit my office door without knocking. "There's a girl on the roof," the worker gasped. "She's past the rail." Zara's head snapped upward, and a red warning spread across Lifeline. Seed signature detected. Engineers rushed to the windows, and one dropped a plastic phone shell beside the workbench. It cracked against the floor, but nobody on that floor knew what the warning meant. They understood the worker pointing at the roof. The reunion ended there. I crossed the office and looked at the roof camera on the security wall. A girl stood 30 floors above the plaza with a knife in one hand. She had already climbed outside the rail, and her face turned toward the camera. It was Ainsley Firth, a girl I recognized from the old timeline. The memory gave me her face. It gave me nothing useful about why she had appeared on my roof with a seed signal around her. The knife carried a dark red smear, and from the camera angle it looked wet. People gathered below Harborcrest, their voices carried through the glass, useless against 30 floors of distance. One worker kept waving both arms at the roof as though she could pull Ainsley back from the plaza. I hit the stairwell, and Origin Mind Method took over my movement. My feet landed before I consciously chose the steps. I cleared whole sections of the staircase at a time, caught each rail, and redirected my weight into the next climb. The 10th floor passed. At 15, I stopped using every step. I planted on the landings and turned each rail into another launch. Then 20, my lungs burned, but my balance never broke. Origin Mind Method cut every wasted step and placed my weight on the next landing before the last one finished. The seed warning brightened with each floor. Pink light flashed behind me once. The restored tether pulled Zara into the stairwell, but she stayed several landings below. Her voice followed through the channel. "The seed signal is still above you," Zara warned. "I can't confirm whether it belongs to the girl." "Keep the channel open," I told her. The roof door came into view. I drove through it, and wind hit me first. Ainsley stood beyond the safety rail, one heel resting over empty air. The knife hung at her side, and a dark red smear covered the blade. I stopped several steps away and called her name. "Ainsley!" She looked over her shoulder and lifted the knife slightly. "Murderers deserve to die." "Who was murdered?" I asked. Her eyes stayed on mine. Ainsley answered, "Don't feel guilty, Calvin. This isn't your fault." The words were aimed at me, but I did not yet know why. She also knew my name, and I had called hers, but I had never introduced myself. "How do you know me?" I asked. Behind me, the roof door banged against the stopper. Zara had reached the doorway. Ainsley looked past my shoulder at Zara and stayed silent. The seed warning pulsed again. I kept my hands visible. "You're 30 floors up," I told her. "Put the knife down and step inside the rail." Ainsley looked toward the plaza, and the crowd below became louder. I moved one step closer. She raised the knife between us so the red blade caught the light. "Stop," Ainsley warned. I stopped. Zara's voice dropped inside the channel. "The signal just spiked." Ainsley's knuckles whitened around the handle. "Are you calling yourself a murderer?" I asked. Ainsley stayed silent, so I kept my voice level. "Then give me the knife and tell me whose death you mean." Ainsley looked down at the red blade and her shoulders relaxed. That frightened me more than the shaking had. The wind pushed her coat across the rail. One loose edge of fabric snapped over 30 floors of empty space. I shifted left, giving her a clear path back onto the roof. "Step toward me," I said. "You keep the explanation. I only need you inside the rail." Ainsley moved one foot, and for half a second I thought she had chosen the roof. Then her weight settled on the heel already hanging over the edge. "Whatever happened," I said, "jumping leaves the answer with everyone except you." Ainsley's grip tightened, and I watched her feet instead of the blade. Her right heel shifted. An origin mind method caught the movement before her body committed. I ran. Ainsley stepped backward, then she jumped. I crossed the last distance and went over the rail after her. My left hand caught the concrete edge while my right hand locked around her wrist. Her full weight tore against my shoulder. For 1 second, Ainsley hung above the Harborcrest Plaza with the knife still in her other hand. Her body swung away from the wall. The knife struck the concrete and left another red streak. The crowd below screamed, and my fingers started sliding across the roof edge. I drove both feet against the outer wall and pulled. Origin mind method held my shoulder in place and shifted the strain through my back. Ainsley swung toward the building. I hauled her high enough to catch her coat, but the fabric started tearing at the shoulder. I changed grips, hooked my forearm under hers and pulled again. The ledge scraped my ribs as her weight came over the concrete. Zara reached the rail as Ainsley's shoulder cleared it. She caught the back of my jacket only after both of us were over concrete. We hit the rooftop together. Below us, the crowd kept screaming until I lifted one hand above the rail. Ainsley lay still, so I pressed 2 fingers to her neck. Her pulse was fast and steady, and only then did the screaming below break into cheers. The seed warning remained red over my vision. Lifeline still could not tell me whether the signal came from Ainsley, the knife, or something close to either one. The knife skidded away. I rolled Ainsley onto her back and searched for the wound behind the red smear. There was no cut. The red substance covered the knife, my palm, and the cuff of her coat. It smelled sweet and sharp, and I wiped it between 2 fingers. Ketchup. Of course. I had just risked my neck for a condiment. The jump had been real, and the blade only carried ketchup. Zara looked at me. "You missed me enough to jump off a roof?" "I had a rough month," I told her. Zara stepped toward the knife and stopped beside it. Her eyes moved from the ketchup to Ainsley. Ainsley opened one eye and looked at me, then at the knife. Ainsley asked, "Did the jump look real enough to get likes, or do we need something juicier next time?"